Are we live, Lucy?
We are.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Good evening, everyone. It's nice to see everyone and thank you for your time this evening. Being here, we're in a slightly different room, but how are we here?
Luciani was just explaining because originally this meeting was going to be online, and then at our last meeting we decided we wanted to be in person.
Yeah, okay.
It was a bit late to the room, so this was all
fair enough.
No, it is empty.
Is it?
Yes, I jumped in there thinking it's a place. I was like,
You, Alex.
I went to
First point. 11.
Hope there's no one else down there.
oh, okay, yeah, I thought, yeah, I obviously didn't read my paper, I couldn't.
I didn't either, but the guy at the front desk.
But yeah, it is like a completely empty room. Even the cameras are all set up. That's why I thought.
Did you go to the normal room?
Yeah, yeah.
We got
Maybe
maybe
starting later.
starting later.
Maybe you could have joined a different one.
Sorry.
For those of you online, hopefully you can hear us okay. Just for the purpose like moderation and stuff. And if you do have questions as we go through the meeting, if you do just also use the hands up function, and I will try and get to you as soon as I can throughout the meeting, and manage this hybrid process as best as possible. Lucy, have we had any apologies?
Yes, we have apologies from Jordan, Councillor Jordan Montgomery, and John Sutton.
And Becky Medlicott sent an email saying she was resigning just a few days ago. Unfortunately, she's had a change of role, which means she can't commit to the Sacre. So we need to find a replacement.
We've not heard from Catherine. We're not sure what's happening with Catherine because Savannah came to the last meeting. Catherine spoke about potentially stepping back and Savannah being her replacement. We can follow that one up. We spoke very briefly about Angie, Emily.
Yeah.
Shahid, we're expecting at some point. That's fine. Jen and Nick. I haven't seen Nick for a couple of things. I don't know if they do that in communications with Nick. The next item on the agenda is minutes of the last meeting. I hope you've all had an opportunity to read the minutes. The notes of the last meeting. That they came to Emily and me, and as chair, I approved them to go out in draft form if they're not verbatim. Does anybody have any amendments?
Yes, I've quite a few, and I'm getting to let them go one at a time. This time, I'm not going to let them go on as a group. Okay, they need to be done individually because they're all important. And I went through very carefully to see what items were not reflected accurately and sufficiently. And anything that I'm asking to be added because it's necessary and because it's a real lack that it's not there. So I'm going to go through them one at a time.
So can I just clarify from sort of constitutionally from an LA point of view, what's the process?
So when you suggest an amendment, the group has to agree to the amendment.
Yes, and I want them done one at a time, not as a group.
The group will have to decide whether you accept it.
Okay, but if the group doesn't accept the amendments, it's still on record on the recording, and then it'll be on this recording that the group hasn't put the amendment in. So which will not look good if they're necessary. I'm sorry, I'm very raw at the moment because of what's been going on. The trust that I have in various individuals have been seriously undermined over the past few months. So please excuse me if I appear a little bit defensive here, but it's been a ride the last few weeks.
Before you go through your amendments, just so you're aware, as I said previously, like with the last one, they're not verbatim.
I'm not doing anything verbatim, and I've been very careful. And it's point by point. So page 6, the minutes read, Shira Solomons believed that if working in the group syllabus, it could develop or advisors for further development of a more suitable syllabus. She was the proposal was being rushed. I can give you a printed copy when I'm done. I'll just do it. We'll do it verbally for now, then I'll hand it to you. I want that replaced with the following. Shira Solomons noted that since Reading had not agreed the syllabus, If we did not agree the syllabus, Wokingham would not be alone. That's a very important point that I was noting, that Wokingham would not be alone because Reading had not approved the syllabus and Reading had not approved the syllabus. The syllabus could be sent back to the advisors to produce a better syllabus that responds properly to consultations, which have been inadequate because the syllabus has been rushed. That's what I said. I want that in the minutes. Agreed?
So those in favour of Shearer's amendment, show of hands.
I personally just don't think it's.
It's very important, particularly because the last meeting there were serious failings, and it's really important to get all these things in. And there is an equalities element here, and this council is at risk of being hauled through the coals over the Equality Act because of what's been going on. So I strongly recommend that you take these amendments on board and put them in, because it's very important. These are very important points. The fact that I noticed that Reading did not agree with the syllabus, that was an important point.
Is that true?
It is true that Reading did not agree with the syllabus. In fact, the RE advisor for Reading misinformed Wokingham and claimed the syllabus had been approved. They've now recognised that it had not been agreed, and they've done a full mea culpa, and they're going to be reviewing the syllabus because they realise what a mess they've made.
So yeah, just to clarify, Shira, I don't know how the miscommunication happened, but we did get the message that Reading had approved the syllabus, and now it does turn out that they hadn't followed the correct, the voting procedure.
No, that's what you were mentioning.
The RE advisor
They
Reading
didn't
misadvised,
follow the correct
and
procedure,
then
so
misinformed Wokingham.
their vote has not stood, and they're
Really serious stuff.
So when the minutes were written, they were
at the time of writing the minutes. That's what we.
I don't want that taken out of the minutes because it can say there is a glaring evidence that the RE advisor for Reading misinformed us, because that needs to be. I don't want that taken out. I don't want that taken out because that is such a scandal that the RE advisor would actually misinform another council. It's just so shocking. No, I really think it's important that gets minuted, that I noted that Reading had not agreed with the syllabus, and that was why it was relevant that we could review it, but because we would not be alone. That was an important point. And also the point that the syllabus had not responded properly to consultations. That was an important point. And that's what I said, and I want that minuted.
So can the group vote on it?
No, I think we probably need to split it into two. I think there's two separate issues.
How many amendments are you making?
I've got 3 pages here. I'm sorry, this is I don't think you guys realise. I've devoted pretty much every bit of my spare time the past few months on this issue. I don't think you realise.
No,
The Jewish community in Berkshire have been basically sold down the river.
all I'm trying to do is come up with more efficient.
Okay, well,
Personally,
the problem is last time I gave you guys all of them at once and you just said no. And I don't want to go through that. So I'm happy to have us vote on the group of them, but I know what's going to happen. I'm one, and I'll just be, I've gone through a lot of effort to go carefully through the minutes. I've got a number of things that need to be added in. They're all important. This would not need to be done if the minutes had been reflected, understood the importance of these points, which I can understand. Maybe Lucy didn't understand the importance of these points. I'm not saying, possibly you didn't understand why these points were important to include, but they were important to include. There are a number of details. One place I wanted to add in a sentence, or I wanted to, or something wasn't entirely accurate. I've gone very carefully through, particularly through the discussion for the ASC. I've done so very carefully, and I would appreciate it. I don't understand why it's such a big deal to correct the minutes.
I don't think it's an issue of correcting the minutes. The minutes are for this committee. They're not verbatim. It's not word for word of every single.
I'm not doing something word
Chair,
for
I was
word.
talking, please don't cut me down, please. I gave you the courtesy of listening to you. There was many points that I made, many members across the table made, that weren't necessarily in the minutes. The recording is there. I assume, how long is the recording?
Forever.
The recording is there forever if people want to refer back to it. That's to defer to the local authority, and Emily and Luciana in terms of advice. The Chair's got a lot of amendments. I agree with Alex in terms of a more efficient way of actually.
Well, I did offer in advance. The last time I had amendments, I sent them to Emily and asked her to incorporate them in advance, and I was told that couldn't be done. That would have been more efficient. I didn't do that this time because the last time I sent through amendments. And by the way, some of the points I want to raise at this meeting are based on the items that happened last time, which were not minuted accurately, and I need to be able to refer to the things that happened. And if the things I want to refer to that didn't happen because they weren't minuted, then I can't refer to them in terms of what happened at the last meeting.
I take issue with the word accurate. I disagree with that. They were
Well-
an accurate record of what happened. You're
Well, that-
suggesting that I'm still talking. Again, I gave you the courtesy of listening to you. You're making suggestions where you want some added bits in there. I don't think we should question the accuracy of the minutes.
I'm sorry? Why are we not allowed to question the accuracy of the minutes?
Well, if there's an accuracy, that's one thing. But what I would say is I made quite a point that you said about that stuff as I walked in. That's not actually agree. I'm only mentioned once. I spoke more than once.
Yeah, well, that's one of the things I want to add in.
Yeah, well,
That is one of the items
fine, but
in here that I
what
want to
I'm
add
saying
in.
is what, in terms of scanning.
Yeah, no, that is one of the items on my list. Is to get that into the minutes.
In terms of the people that are in these, or in the more than.
I mean, one of the items I want added into the minutes is on page 8. Because it says councillor, it didn't give me a name. It was Alex asked if there was a way for working to leave the pound box syllabus and have a backstop. And I want that amendment, that should be amended. That Councillor Finney drew an analogy between the Sacre situation and negotiating Britain's exit from the EU. He asked whether if we fail to agree to the syllabus, it would now be like Britain on WTO rules. If we don't agree, do we end up with some sort of backstop syllabus?
That's a level of pizza.
Whether you asked whether we would have a backstop. And Ian replied that if the ASC says no, then we have only the following options. It was not made clear in the minutes that Ian's response was to you. So it's a fine point, but since that was something where Ian gave the Sacre advice, which turns out to have been inaccurate, possibly by accident. I totally understand. Maybe Ian did not understand how ASCs are meant to operate, but the advice he gave us was inaccurate, which has now been acknowledged. It's really important to understand that he was answering Alex.
So what I would say to that is, in the case of the inaccuracy, I agree that definitely was missed. But in terms of the additional detail, just using that as an example, I think what's reflected in it's there, other than the fact that my name is absent. And like I say, I was just scanning my name, so I did miss that. Other than the fact that my name is absent, I would say that that is a fine account of what actually happened. So if the amendments you're making are stuff like that, where it's just adding detail to something, I would suggest that that's not necessary because there is a recording of it. But if you've got stuff in here that is genuine inaccuracy,
Or stuff that was left out.
What we're talking about.
Or stuff that was left out, which should have been in there.
Yeah.
So I think it's already been explained. Of course, we can challenge the accuracy, but it is for the whole group to agree that needs changing. It's a committee, so it's made of a lot of people that need to agree with the changes. For efficiency, I wonder if it would be useful to make a photocopy of these changes and give people 10 minutes to read or 5 minutes to read, and then you can decide. And it's just short hands. Do you want that change? Yes or no?
That's what we did last
Not a
time.
change. Yes or no? But it's not for me to decide or for you alone to decide. It is for the committee to decide whether they accept your changes or not. With regards to the point of names,
I don't have an issue with that one.
it is council's policy to try and avoid naming councillors so it doesn't turn political.
Oh, I see.
Okay.
Okay. So are you telling me?
What does the group want to do? Do you want to have an adjournment for 10 minutes to read the notes, or do you want to go through it now?
I think that's a technical question. How are we going to, and I'm not saying you're right or wrong at all, on a technical point, how are we going to agree if we haven't got accurate memory without watching the video and going through it that way?
Well, usually when we're at other meetings, people go on memory.
There is also such a thing as good faith and trust.
Oh yeah, and that's the technical.
And there is no reason why people don't trust me. So if I'm being told I need to trust other people, sometimes I think it's great for people to say, trust me, I was very careful. And I think I'm a trustworthy person, you know. kind of tired of being told I have to trust other people. No one's ever told that they have to trust me. But that's a bit powerful.
Can I suggest that we have the chair's notes copied so that we can read them? She speaks extremely quickly and it's not always easy to follow that. So
Yeah,
we could read
I
them
think
and then it's
take
able to
reflect.
point.
So if I just mute the recording, I'll take your notes, I'll make copies for everybody, is that acceptable?
How are we going to put our colleagues online?
This is a good one.
I have 2 extra copies here. I bought.
Actually, I can scan it and then email it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is that acceptable to the colleagues online?
Yes.
I've got it here, but I want to.
What does the group want to do?
I
It's not my decision.
Personally, I'll vote for it just for the sake of time.
I think the only other
I
fair
appreciate
way to do it is to defer approving the minutes till the next meeting, and I don't know when that is, and then go back to them. We will then have time to read
Well,
them
also, again, it's an electronic copy.
and think about them and go back to our.
But I want to be able to refer to these things during this meeting because there were events that happened in last meeting that were not minuted adequately, and I want to be able to refer.
Shahid. You're on mute if you're talking, Shahid.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, Chair, whether it's possible to go through the notes now and digest everything what is being said and then come to a conclusion. I'm more inclined to actually go with Beth's suggestion to defer the approval, and so can have a time to have a look at these notes properly and then come back to it.
Thank you.
Yeah, there's stuff in brackets in there which is not, see, that concludes my notes. So the stuff in italics is the old minutes. The stuff not in italics is what I was one of added. The stuff in brackets on my notes. So it's all mixed together. I've got three. I have 3 others giving you one.
Just don't know if people want to have a quick look and make a decision.
From a procedural point of view, are we able to defer approving the minutes in the next meeting?
I've never had this situation before, so I'm trying to think.
I don't think that is a viable option.
But on the memory thing, unless everybody goes home and then watches the whole recording again, it's going to be even harder at the next meeting to remember.
That's why I did this. That's why I did it.
I'm satisfied with the fact that the video is available online for anybody that
I know,
wants to.
this is what I'm saying. I think if there's inaccuracies that you want to bring, I think that's value. That's worth our time. But I think if you're talking about, so many council meetings I've been in, where I then look back at the minutes and like my first climate committee meeting, where I asked 12 questions, only 3 of them were put in the minutes. And the ones that I didn't get answers to, I was told I was going to get rid of. I never actually did. I had to keep chasing it for weeks. That's just kind of how minutes are in a council forum. That's just inevitably how it is. But if there are genuine inaccuracies in the minutes, that is worth our time and that is worth correcting. So could we go through the inaccuracies, not stuff that's missed? Because I'm going to say it's in the minutes. There was a job
or unclear, or ambiguous.
I think that's fair. I think going through and just saying this was talked about and not minuted. I think the recordings there.
Well, the fact that I noted that was because Reading and not be the syllabus, we would not be alone. That was an important point that was left out.
Oh.
That should have been included.
Chair Solomon states that not all 5 share local authority. Yeah. So without the red correction. Yeah.
And therefore, Rockingham would not be alone if they send the syllabus back to the RE advisors for revision. Which, by the way, is still the case.
that these are notes of what we knew at that time, not what we now know.
Well, we knew it then.
No, because it says there, following the meeting, it was clarified that the vote had been legal.
Yeah,
And you're
because,
telling me now that that's
That's
the
not
exact
changed.
opposite.
yeah,
That's not-
that's right. The RE advisor for Reading misinformed the Working Council. That's exactly right.
So we should update that. in
Yeah,
vote.
No, that should go in, that should go in this, that should go in this,
Time.
in this meeting. Note that the RE advisor for Reading misadvised us that the word in Reading had been legal, and it turns out that it had not been. And I think it's very important that it, in fact, I want this minuted, that we were misinformed, that the RE advisor for Reading told us something false.
Well, she
That is
gave-
very important that that's minuted. It's extremely important. Either he is incompetent or he was dishonest, one or the other. It's very serious.
Or he just made a simple mistake.
Yes.
It wasn't a simple mistake because my husband pointed out at the time that it was a mistake and they went ahead anyway. It wasn't a simple mistake. It was.
I'm
reckless.
personally, if we're gonna have a vote on that, I'm happy to vote.
That's
an extra issue.
very important.
Extra information.
Can we have
So
some
sorry, thank you. Can we just be clear, just so I'm very, what is it we're putting in and amending in that bit of minutes, please then, and then we will vote.
Sheriff Solomon noted that since Reading had not agreed the syllabus, we did not.
Speak so that we can understand.
I'm
what's
that-
what you've got.
Sheriff Solomon noted that since Reading had not agreed the syllabus, if we did not agree the syllabus, we would not be alone.
Those in favour of adding that amendment? 1, 2, those noes.
Are there any other inaccuracies?
Are the others abstaining? It's not very clear what you're voting.
Just vote for it, as long as you say it's fine. It's so silly.
Show them.
I have a short answer.
So just, it's a genuine, so if it's a genuine.
Are you not voting?
Yes, voting yes. If you,
I'm just confused because obviously this is something that's come to light since the meeting.
Yeah,
So
but is
It
it?
shouldn't have been, it shouldn't have been in there.
where an accurate reflection of what was.
True.
This red outside should never have been
It's
put in there.
different.
Yes, these are public.
Should never be put
What
in.
we discussed.
Those red outside should never have been put in there, but they're there.
If we'd known this
but that's
information
fine.
on that night, then it would have been different.
Well, but we did because Sheriff told us.
Yeah, I did.
Whether we chose to believe it is.
Yeah, and I was right. And I was right.
So I think that is an accurate reflection of the minutes. I think we did that better. And I think it's also
I think,
inaccuracy.
I don't know if you go back to the minutes, perhaps at this point in time, I should say that what will happen on the website is that I'll go back to the previous minutes and I'll put a red note at the top and say there were changes to these minutes. Those minutes, as they're published, will never change.
Mhm.
They will be there with that meeting and there'll be a note to say there were amendments and they will go with these minutes.
Mhm.
So I'll add
Mhm.
to the minutes
Okay.
in here.
Oh, so the inaccurate minutes
They will remain
stay
because
other
they
than the fact that they say there are amendments in the next.
But
minutes.
yeah, I think you make a very valid point. They're accurate to what actually happened at the meeting
Yes, yeah.
at the time. But after that, so that sentence in red is the one that is really problematic, isn't it?
Yeah, it shouldn't have been put in there in the first place.
It was
But
not
I
clear
like
to
the
me
fact that
at
it's
the
there
time.
because
but that's what we get
because it shows the evidence that the RE advisor for Reading.
because Sheila, you raised that, and after the meeting, we subsequently went back to the advisors, and that's why we put that in red, because we wanted to seek clarification.
Mhm.
So if we put in these minutes that it has come to light, as you said,
That the RE
advisor wrongly
Wrongly
advised
advised
their
us.
Sacre meeting. Is that okay?
That needs to put in this
In this sense,
in these minutes. The next item that I'm.
Sorry, I'm just, I didn't think we voted formally, because some people didn't vote. So if you weren't here at the last meeting, can I just?
I wasn't here at the last
Okay.
meeting, so I can't.
So you're not voting.
No, because I can't reflect on minutes that was made.
Of course. Well, we didn't, because Luciana, you didn't have a clear indication if he was if there's abstentions, no's, and yeses.
What's that any notes?
There were
Oh, well, there, any notes?
2.
Okay. Okay, well, that's another vote.
So.
So
the
can we
first-
be clear on what we're voting?
Yes.
for?
Yeah.
Advised that the rating advisor misadvised their Sacre.
To add that.
To add
that.
I think it's, okay, so
Hold a minute. No, that needs to be in this week's minutes.
Yeah, it will be in
Yeah.
this minutes.
Yeah, so there's no need to vote on that. That should be minuted. You shouldn't need to vote on something like that. It has to be minuted. It's very important. can't just leave something out of the minutes. That's an important thing that happens in the meeting.
Sorry, Sheila, the bit where you're saying, which bit did you want us to vote? So you said Sheila Solomon statement, modified Berkshire. This is the bit we're trying to vote on. So can you just tell us what is the bit?
Minutes, page 6.
Yes.
That I noted that since Reading had not agreed the syllabus, if we didn't agree the syllabus, we would not be alone.
Yeah, it's
Okay,
literally-
so you want
it's
that
in the
line?
end of the first sentence.
Those in favour of that line going in will be hands right up just so I can see. So 3. Those no. Sarah said, Sarah, you a yes?
Yeah,
No.
yes.
No's, any no's? This round, no row. Abstentions? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5. It carries. Oh, 6. 6 abstentions.
This can go quite quickly if I'm just able to keep going. The next point was, it says in the minutes, Chair Solomon stated it was important for groups to have an opportunity.
Sheila, I can't understand what.
The minutes read, Chair Solomon stated that it was important for groups to have an opportunity to discuss the syllabus before making a decision. This leaves out a number of things which I wanted to be on the record, among which were that Ian told us that cross-group discussion was not possible. Among which was that I suggested that we appoint a spokesperson for each group to then discuss things across groups to resolve any differences between the groups, which I was told was not possible. Among which was I expressed concerns about being bullied, which was also not minuted. Those 3 things, I've got them in a paragraph. They all are important. The fact that I noted that I've been bullied, the fact that I suggested that we appoint a spokesperson, and then Ian told me that was not possible to have negotiation between groups, when it turns out that is actually not true. That's important that it's minuted that he told us that, since it is not true. That needs to be minuted, that we were advised by Ian that we could not have negotiation between the groups.
Sheila, just to say, we did go on to have quite a long discussion as a whole group.
Yes,
did we not? Which is
but
what
we were
the rest
told
of
that
them
if the
done.
groups failed to reach agreement, that we could not then negotiate between the groups after vote. I suggested that the groups appoint a spokesperson.
I think this is going to be a lot quicker if she just reads them out. Rather than today.
Shira Solomon's expressed concern of members being prevented from stating their concerns about the syllabus to those in other groups, and she felt that she had been silenced and bullied. She suggested that a spokesperson for each group could be appointed to discuss matters across groups. Ian said that cross-group discussion is not possible, as it is the groups that have to decide to read the syllabus or not. That is what happened.
But we did then go on to have a quite a long discussion as a group.
Can we vote?
Yeah, so voting for those amendments, those yes. No's. Abstention.
Bracknell. A line was left out that was crucial here. Page 7. The Bracknell Sacre had agreed the syllabus at a meeting that fell on a Jewish holy day when the Jewish representative was not able to be present.
Sheila, I'm sorry, I cannot.
It's the bottom of the second paragraph. She's
Yeah,
reading the
but
bottom
I
of the
want to
second paragraph.
hear.
What's in the current minutes is the Bracknell Sacre had agreed to the syllabus at a meeting that fell on a Jewish holy day and the Jewish representative was not able to be present. This should read, the Bracknell Sacre had agreed the syllabus at a meeting that fell on a Jewish holy day, in spite of the fact that this was known. That phrase, in spite of the fact that this was known. That was the crucial thing. In fact, I raised my voice when I said that. The point is that they did it in spite of the fact that it was known, so that the Jewish rep there was unable to say anything.
We don't know that Bracknell knew that.
They did because she told them. And I've watched the recording where she told them that. I went back and checked. And I've listened to her where she told them. Okay?
True.
I went back and I checked.
Have you
And
watched it?
I said, and whether or not what I said was true, whether or not you get a question with what I said was true, the fact is that I said that and I emphasized that they'd done it in spite of the fact that they knew it was a religious festival.
I'm not disputing.
And
I think it's
that should be added to the minutes.
I think it's personally bad enough that they have it on. They even if they didn't know.
But the fact that they knew it, It's important.
So
That should have been in the
where
minutes.
does the red comment come from?
The red comment was added in afterwards as a kind of
So
excuse.
then is that not accurate then either? Because what you're saying is
It's just what about you being excuses? What about you being excuses? People trying to cover their tracks and make up for the fact that they screwed up by trying to make excuses. That's what it is.
Those in favour of that amendment,
In spite of the fact that it was known.
those in favour of adding that amendment. 1 yes, noes. 3 noes, any abstentions, 4 noes. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 abstentions. So next one, Shira.
That I observed that there had been inadequate consultation. The syllabus have been produced with a rush full of errors.
Sure, where are we reading?
It's
I think
that's the syllabus was full of errors. Where is it minuted that I said the syllabus was full of errors?
yeah, let's say that it's been changed last
It's
minute.
that there was inadequate consultation. The syllabus had produced in a rush full of errors. That was not, that I said that, it wasn't minuted. And by the way, I'm saying less than what I've written down. But the fact that I said it was full of errors, that should have been added in.
The point has already been made. Not every single word that is said in a meeting is accurate. That's why there's
Okay.
a summary of the meeting. Otherwise, it'd be 100 pages long.
I mentioned I had a document detailing the problems which I requested to be emailed out to members. That was not minuted. That's actually crucially important. The document has it still not been emailed out to members? That document, the Jewish members of feedback, has it still not been emailed out to members? Still not.
If
Shocking.
it's the Bracknell syllabus, it's not relevant.
No, this is.
No, it's not. The Jewish members in November wrote a response to the syllabus expressing our concerns that there was that the nature of the syllabus basically was that it was anti-Semitic the way it had been written. I asked that document to be shared with members. I said that I'd asked that document to be shared with members at the last meeting. That was not minuted
Was there a reason?
because it was sent too late.
No, I'm asking.
When Shira first sent it to me, it was during the syllabus review process.
Yeah.
And the process that was
Yes.
in place at the time.
I gave you a copy of the hard copy. Remember I was told off for giving it to you.
Can we have one voice, please? Just also people if they're watching online.
And I
The
was
process that was in place during the syllabus review is that if any Sacre member had feedback on the syllabus, it would go to the advisors who were writing the syllabus. So to send it to actual working Sacre wasn't.
ridiculous.
When it's been sent to me just recently, again in the last few days, my feeling was that it wasn't that we've had a discussion about the syllabus. Shira raised concerns, serious concerns at the last meeting. We've now voted on the
The
syllabus.
syllabus is not going to be adopted, but it's going to be challenged in court. It's going to end up with a formal complaint to the council under the Equality Act because the syllabus is discriminatory against Jews.
But I don't think.
It's already happening already.
I don't think that's something which is, additional to what we're trying to get here and address your concerns. So we could concentrate.
I will go and read the recording again, but I don't remember you saying it's anti-Semitic.
I didn't say that in the meeting. I put it in that document, which I wanted to be emailed out to everybody. And by the way, I strengthened the language in that document because the other Jewish RE advisors thought I hadn't made it strong.
What I would say about that then is if I show up to but I don't say anything, I can't then, in hindsight, add something to the information.
I'm not asking you to do that.
I thought you said Shira Solomon
No.
tried to distribute
A document.
which contained
No. I said that I had produced a document and that had and asked for it to be shared with members. I said that in the meeting, and that was not minuted. Should it be minuted?
Nick.
Hi, yes. I think if there's a complaint to the council and possibly legal proceedings, if I caught that, it's quite hard to follow this online. But if that's what I heard, it occurs to me that these minutes are very important, that they are 100% accurate. And I'm a little bit concerned that we're sort of rushing through and agreeing things without maybe reviewing the recording of the previous meeting and actually, analysing it in a bit more detail, because these minutes could be very, very important in those proceedings. So,
I hear what you're saying. Do hear what you're saying, but again, I think we should be very clear about accuracy versus things missing in there. And then and it's not for me to say if a legal proceeding is about to, or any of us here, because that's not my job. But if the legal proceeding is about to begin, then the legal team will have access to minutes and the recording.
Yeah, so it's for the benefit of legal proceedings,
So in other words, if I have issues with what happened at the last meeting, I can refer to what happened at the last meeting as far as my records are concerned, and whether it's in the official minutes doesn't matter.
yes.
We have a standard.
Because we received advice from Ian last meeting, and there were a number of pieces of advice that Ian gave us at the last meeting that were inaccurate. And it's really important that that it's on.
That is on record. If the reason you are doing this is so that you can build a basis for a legal case, you don't need to do that because it's all recorded.
We have a standards committee here within the council, which includes both members and our legal team. And if you want to make a formal complaint about the meeting, can I suggest you make it to the standards committee?
Okay.
If you want details, I'm happy to talk to you afterwards. I'll give you the address and everything.
Perhaps the other thing I would add, that you've been a councillor a long time, very often in formal committees like the executive, the minutes will say something like, much discussion was had about A, and then it's the decision that's really important. Whereas I understand where you're coming from, and it's true, not everything that was said is in the minutes, not every name is in there. But really, in legal terms, I think what's important is actually, what's the decision that the committee made?
So these notes that I have can still be sort of record.
Kira, can you keep those? Because the standards committee do have an in-person hearing. And
Okay. Because there were major failings at the last meeting. We did the vote on the syllabus under false pretenses. We were told we were up against a cliff that did not exist. We were told we had no backup if we refused to accept the syllabus. That was not the case. We were told that if we didn't agree the syllabus, we'd have to start a completely new syllabus. That was not the case. We were told that we were not told that we had the option of keeping the old syllabus until the new syllabus was approved. That was not the case. And by the way, anybody who just goes on Sacre's website and reads their guidance for ASCs would know that's not the case. I am absolutely appalled that an RE advisor could not know certain things that are so basic that you can get on Sacre's website. And this whole situation frankly stinks.
Sorry, just a correction to something you said there, Shira, that when we were talking at the last meeting, I distinctly remember we did talk about what happens if we wanted to make changes to the syllabus. And what Ian explained was that would make it a Wokingham only syllabus, which was an option that we explored. And people talked about what are the pros and cons of having a Wokingham only syllabus as opposed to being part of the
He also told us that if we didn't agree with the syllabus, then our options were we had to get a totally new syllabus. And in fact, we were so concerned about being up against the edge of a cliff that Alex asked, is there a backstop? And we were told no. And that was very clear. We felt like we had a gun to our head. You agree the syllabus or the sky will fall. And that is why we were bullied into accepting the syllabus, in spite of the fact that we know there were serious concerns. And what we could have done the last meeting, which we didn't realize we were able to do, was to say no. We could have and kept the old syllabus in place until the new syllabus could be finished and ready. And that places the whole vote that we did in question whether the council could in good conscience adopt the syllabus, knowing that there is a serious equality issue, that the Judaism content was changed without consultation in ways that are deeply offensive, whether the council can go ahead with this syllabus in the circumstances. The Campaign Against Anti-Semitism has now got this matter in hand, and they will shortly be producing some documents to support us. This is a very serious matter.
So, as you say, Shira, Ian was asked for a question at the last meeting about what would happen if we didn't approve the syllabus, and he outlined a few options which are limited. There is one option that he thought he'd mentioned and didn't, and he agrees he should have done. So that is actually what I was going to, when we get to the item matters arising update on the syllabus, I was going to raise
Okay,
that.
I will waive this and keep this as a record, and if there's ever any official complaint about the mishaps of the last meeting, then I've got my personal records. I guess that's the. Yeah, I guess that's the way to go. I'm so absolutely just this whole process has just been emotionally exhausting.
But does that mean we're on
Item
matters
already, yes, not to the right now.
We're recording the minutes, we're not,
Are we approving the minutes?
Yeah, so with the quick show of hands.
Yeah.
With a quick show of hands, who approves the minutes? That's mostly yes, approving them. Thank you, Luciani. Emily's updates on the syllabus.
Okay, so there are a few things I was going to say to update on the syllabus. The first one is the one that Shira's just been alluding to, which is the fact that Shira has raised a concern that before we had the vote at the last meeting, one of the options that members weren't aware of, if you didn't vote to approve the syllabus, was that it is an option to keep the old syllabus at least for a period of time longer, while more work is done on the new syllabus. So,
Which is exactly what I was arguing we should do.
what the local authority,
Can we just one person at a time?
Okay.
Thank you. Just one person at a time, please. Emily.
what the local authority would like to get members' views on is whether that might have affected your thinking on whether we should adopt the syllabus. And if anyone feels it might have changed their thinking, then we would like to hold the vote again. We can't do that today because we need to give you notice of that, but we could call a special ASC meeting at which we run the vote again, potentially, if anyone feels that having that bit of information might have changed your view about adopting the syllabus. So,
it certainly would have changed.
could I have just on an individual basis, if it's all right with you, Stephen, to ask for just a show of hands for anyone who thinks that might have changed their thinking? Absolutely.
Three in the room, 2 or 1.
And that's most of Group A.
Okay, well, that suggests to me in that case that it's a local authority. The local authority has the power to reconvene the syllabus conference to vote again. So
I want more than that. I want us to be able to revise the syllabus.
that
I want us to open the syllabus again to consultation so that we can fix it.
the first step, Shira, is for this committee. We need to go through the democratic process. So as things stand, this agreed syllabus conference voted to adopt the syllabus. So if we want to change that, the first step is to have the vote again and see whether the committee would still like to adopt the syllabus or not.
No, we can vote tonight to open up consultation on the syllabus. You can revise the syllabus whenever you want. See, I've read up on stuff now. I don't have to trust people anymore who might give incorrect advice. So I know at any point a Sacre can open up a consultation to revise the syllabus whenever they want, can't they, Ian?
Yeah, anybody, and talk to Luciana, anybody from committees A, B, and C can request a reconvening of an agreed syllabus conference at any time. Only, and Luciana talked about this earlier, where we're not. Committee D cannot, because this is part of the local authority, but committees A, B, and C can request a reopening of the agreed syllabus conference. At that point, you can present the syllabus again. As I say, I apologise, I apologise openly to everybody. I thought I'd said it, and obviously I've not, that you have the option then to reject syllabus, and then you can vote to maintain the current syllabus whilst the review goes on.
So in effect.
I'm sorry, I apologise.
Well, we can vote now to decide we're going to conduct a further review, which we can do along with Reading, because Reading is conducting a further review.
By having seen the group of people that want us to look at again, I would be really happy to, I would want to vote again. I would appreciate time to go away and read it, because I've come from Sacre and things to sort out at school, and the actual detail isn't in my head. So I would really appreciate time to read it and look at it before we then re-voted.
And can the Judaism feedback please be now be distributed to members of the Sacre? We should not have to always go through the RE advisors. RE advisors work for us. We are the decision makers. We decide what syllabus we want. They are employees of the council. They are not gods who decide what syllabus we're going to have, and then we say, yes, sir. It is absolutely outrageous that I should have to go through the RE advisors to send feedback that's very important from all the Jews in Berkshire why there's a problem with the syllabus, that the members of the Sacre are not allowed to see that feedback. It's outrageous. We should not have to go through the RE advisors. It's a complete failure process. But that's not the way that other Sacres operate. I've spoken to other people, absolutely outraged the way things work in Berkshire.
Thank you for sharing. Emily.
I want that minuted, by the way.
So the reason we decided not to propose having the vote today, if people wanted to vote again, was because Luciani advised me that the normal process is for meetings that if there's, especially if there's going to be a full vote, that item should be included in the published agenda, so that people know there's.
Well, if it's on the it's not here.
Yeah, exactly. People would like to have the opportunity.
So I was just asking, there was something mentioned about Group D. Just
yeah, so
you're not able to ask for an ASC to be reopened.
But if it is, I'll still get.
Oh, you can still vote.
Yes.
You still have
Yes.
to vote.
Yeah.
Because the stakeholders are groups A through C.
Yeah, yeah.
You guys are servants.
Yeah, of course.
Sorry, Emily.
Yeah.
And he's also a servant. The RE advisors seem to forget.
I think we need to leave sort of those comments out. It's not helpful. It's inappropriate. Emily.
So I think people are saying they do want to have the vote again, but not right now. Is that
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we want to be able to look at the syllabus and consider amendments to the syllabus. And I think we should do so. Consider reaching out to Reading Council, which is having to do a revision of the syllabus because they recognise that it's an equalities issue.
I think
sorry, Emily. And I do hear what you're saying, and I do hear that from sort of the Jewish community there are concerns and agreements, so they do need to be looked at. I think we also need to be, please don't talk over me. I also think we also need to consider as well our schools and our young people as well in the classroom, and this has just been dragging on as well for our schools as well. It's just the other thing to just be mindful of.
That is, I will not be blamed for the failures of the RE advisors who took the time and effort to destroy the Judaism content. It took them effort. Getting rid of the word Israel from the syllabus, that took them time and effort. They put a particular effort into making sure to damage the Judaism content of the syllabus. They did not need to do that. That is on them. And I will not, that's what the last meeting I let myself be bullied. We should not have to take the consequences of somebody else's failure. The RE advisors had done their jobs. We would not be in this position. And if in November I had been heard, we would have revised the syllabus and we'd be holding an ASC tonight.
Sharing your views, Emily.
just to clarify the process, I think Ian will correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the way that the vote will have to go, because the ASC, I believe, can only vote on a kind of yes/no question. So the first question when we meet to vote would have to be the same question we voted on last time.
No,
Do we vote to adopt? the
that's not
syllabus?
how ASCs work.
If the answer is no, then we could have a second question, which is around, do we want, because we have to have a syllabus. So the second question would be, do we vote to keep the current syllabus for X number of months while we continue to work on the
Yeah,
new?
but Emily, other councils have ASCs where people sit around tables and discuss and propose changes. Because of this Berkshire system that we've been sort of corralled. But in other councils where they don't have these sort of group syllabuses across all sorts of councils, people at an ASC will actually do this thing called consulting. And they will look and they might say, now we want to make this and this amendment, and then there'll be discussion between the groups, which is possible, and then they'll agree a syllabus. And it might be that you'll say, we're not ready to agree a syllabus tonight, and then you'll reconvene to finish the work. And that's how ASCs operate. They're meant to be consultative. But what we've developed in Berkshire is this top-down thing where the all-knowing RE advisors gather the information, decide what Jews are, even if Jews think that there's something else because they are all-knowing and we are just plebs. And then they tell us what we are, and then we say yes. And that is not the way you're meant to do it. And we've got to change it completely the way we do it.
Thank you. Both Stephen and I sit on that committee, and it isn't the advisors that run the committee, it's us.
Talking about the hub.
The hub.
Well, the hub doesn't have any of us on it, does it?
Yes, it does.
Any Jews on the hub? Any Hindus on the hub?
There are people from all faiths on the hub.
Are there any Jews on the hub?
I don't know.
There are not.
Because I can't remember.
I know there are no Jews on the hub.
Well,
because if there were
then
Jews on
that's
the hub, I would
absolutely
know.
fine. But it's members from all Sacres across the county.
And not a single minority faith rep is on that hub.
It's represented by chairs and vice.
Yes, that's right.
And that's what we decided.
Not a single minority faith rep is on the hub.
Please
It's
stop
outrageous.
talking over me. I send you the courtesy of listening to you. Please, can you stop talking over me? The hub we agreed many years ago, Alex, because of relatively new stuff, right? Chairs and vice that would attend the hub and represent their Sacre.
And the advisors that we employ, each Sacre employs, we work together on putting the syllabus together. We've done it for many, many years. I've been on here since 1995, 6, and that's how we've done it, and it's worked beautifully.
That's what you think.
Well, that's what I know, because I do know members of the other Sacre.
That's your experience as a member of the
Sacre.
majority ethnic
Sheila,
group
will
in
you
this
please not
country.
be rude to me? I've sat on that. I've given up my time to sit on it and done the best I can. If you're not happy with that, I'm very happy to leave this meeting. I have another one to go to.
So I was just going to say, I think what we've started to get into is reflecting on how the syllabus we've currently got has been arrived at. And I think that is a separate discussion from saying we are where we are, how are we going to move forward? And I think we definitely need to talk about how we got to where we are. But I think that's the second thing. I think once we've sorted out the current issue and we have a syllabus that we're agreed on, then is the time to reflect and make sure that next time we review our syllabus, we're happier with the process. But I think there's two distinct things to address.
I'm sorry about that. You need to understand just how bitter we are at our exclusion from this, the fact that we have been excluded, that we have been dictated at, that we've been treated like any accommodation of anything that we say is like huge, concession, and not treated as equal partners. And it hurts. And I'm not just speaking for myself.
Sorry, no.
Ian?
Yeah, just say, as I say, I have extended. My apologies for not explaining we could. My understanding was at the meeting I came to last time, it was a vote on a syllabus as presented. If that was not the case, then I do apologise for that one. But my understanding was a syllabus had been prepared by the Berkshire Hub that was to be presented to the Sacre. So my advice to the Sacre at the time was that actually here is a syllabus, and the role of the ASC is to vote in its committees, one vote per committee, whether they accept that or not. if, I say I apologise, by not saying that you could maintain the other one to open up that discussion. The email that Emily refers to, and Emily, I both received it on the 6th of November last year, did say that Reading ASC had agreed their syllabus. And if that was not the case, I would quite happy to share the email. Emily's got those. To say
The RE advisor did tell the Yorkingham that they'd agreed the syllabus,
Yeah,
but he was wrong.
That was my information that I presented to you. So I'm presenting the information I had at the time of the last meeting. In terms of what the representative is saying, it was a syllabus presented. There are agreed syllabus conferences that I have worked with where we have gone through the syllabus and we have looked at the individuals, and there has been discussion across the committees and across the groups about the content of it. However, in a vote, the vote is per committee, and that's what I'm trying to hopefully explain. It's one vote per committee. In a Sacre meeting, it's one vote per member. However, when you're agreeing a syllabus or not, it's one vote per committee. So if that's been misunderstood, then I apologise for not explaining that fully. That's what I meant by it is within the committee to make that decision, not cross committees. However, if we are looking at content and you want to go through the content outside the Pam Berkshire syllabus for a Woking Group syllabus, you can do that. Then it is literally, as before, each amendment is one vote per committee, not one vote per member.
And there is absolutely no reason why the feedback the Jews produced about that syllabus should not have been sent to members of the secretary. Correct? There was no procedural issue. And I'm still very hurt. And I heard that I was even reprimanded in the car park for giving paper copies. They didn't get come to Alex.
Like I was told that you shouldn't be canvassing votes at all, but that's not a conversation for us to have at this meeting. If you have a problem, we can have a
I felt
conversation.
personally bullied.
Likewise, but that's a conversation we can have elsewhere, outside of this meeting. Nigel.
So I just want to clarify this because I understand that each of the committees, A, B, C, D, has to come to. But I don't see that necessarily precludes discussion between those committees before they take their vote, and it doesn't.
So, of course it shouldn't.
No, so we could have in that ASC had a presentation of particular objections to the syllabus, and it could have been discussed by everybody. That's correct, isn't it?
And then when the vote is taken, that's when it's the committee.
Yeah, and that's when, yes, and then we have our own intercommittee, intra-committee discussions.
With that said, is there a way that we can take a look at Shearer's complaint in a ball on its own and accept the rest of the syllabus? That's correct.
No, it's the whole syllabus.
Yeah, but the changes that are needed to the syllabus.
You shouldn't really interrupt.
Sorry.
Stephen's the chair.
Yeah, the vote is literally to accept or not to accept. It is a very binary vote in that sense. When you go into the committees, those are true. Because at that point, if it's voted to accept, then it would go to council, approval by council. If it's not, then that's when we reopen discussions around what we're going to do next, which could involve, without say, extending the current syllabus whilst a new one is reviewed. At that point, that then would become the Woking only syllabus if there are any amendments, which is what I was trying to explain last time. So you would have a separate syllabus to the other local authorities. That's one of the options that I did mention last time, that we could reopen it, make changes, but then it would be the Woking agreed syllabus, not the Pam Berkshire agreed syllabus.
But we can work with Reading.
I think that comes back with maybe problems in our school as children move from area to area.
And that's
why we have the Pam Berkshire syllabus.
Yeah. So you are providing a framework for Woking schools and under the new Ofsted discussions. We know that one of the big areas is going to be curriculum design. You design the curriculum based on the framework. So Woking would have its own framework. Schools would then use that to design their own curriculum, because curriculum, as was noted by the previous schools minister, is the responsibility of the SLT and the schools themselves. The agreed syllabus is providing a framework for that RE.
I just want, because of the situation with Reading, the idea that there is a Pam Berkshire syllabus, because of the Reading situation, I take it that Pam Berkshire syllabus is not approved
Correct.
now,
At the moment.
at the moment, and that we've just, we're stepping back from our approval. Is that right? Yes.
So we don't work with.
So just to clarify, as far as I'm aware, some of the Sacres, i.e. Bracknell, Windsor and Maidenhead, West Berkshire, Slough, have voted for the syllabus, and there's no reason why their adoption of it won't go forward.
Oh, there is.
Oh,
there is. Oh, there is, because we're gonna be watching.
As things stand,
Every single local authority, we're gonna be watching complaints from every single.
Nigel.
Yeah, so there will be no Pam Berkshire syllabus, but those 4 Sacres had adopted a syllabus individually.
Yes.
And that's the situation now, because it's not Pam Berkshire.
Yeah, but it may or may not have actually been adopted, because until it's voted for in the council, it hasn't been adopted. And we are planning on lodging a complaint. So it's in all likelihood that everyone can go back to the table, and we could even work together, fix it, and still have a Pam Berkshire syllabus. That's what I like. Totally possible. It'll take about 2 hours to fix the syllabus. I've done all the work.
Emily, I'm a bit unsure in terms of like agenda and how to proceed. If we're sort of saying we're going back to an ASC, in terms of reflection, sort of discussion, I do think this is important that everyone has the opportunity, but I'm just not sure.
No, I think
now
that should be.
I think that should be deferred until we've gone back and reviewed. I don't know how other members feel. Sorry. So we were going to have a discussion around the process, just so we can share with the advisors and the hub around the whole ASC process. But actually, I don't feel that's appropriate now, given we're potentially going to open ASC.
No, we absolutely should discuss it.
We're going to have a vote on us opening the ASC.
I thought that's what.
That's already.
That's what we've already done.
So agreed that.
There is going to be an ASC.
So there will be another.
At some point, yes. And then further down the line, what I'm suggesting is, because I'm very mindful of time, for the last year, we've not done any of our normal Sacre business. I think further down the line, maybe in our June meeting, whoever takes over for me and chair in the new year, then you sit down and have those conversations around how having discussion. I'll be within a second how the whole process has gone. Emily?
Ming has actually, people met Ming at our last meeting. He's
And
our
then Shira.
Director of Education. He's obviously aware that several Sacre members have said they would like to review the process of the syllabus review. And he's suggested that potentially we could set up a task and finish group to really look at that in detail. But that's after the process is concluded.
Let's not
Not
talk about
complete yet.
that.
We're not complete. So if people are happy, I would suggest.
I mean, that's us. Sorry.
Sorry, everyone. Thank you. Shira.
Hold a minute. If we're gonna be reviewing this now.
No, sorry, the process that we went through to come up with the syllabus is what we're talking about.
I know, but if we're gonna be doing a further review of the syllabus now, and if that further review involves again, our advisors acting like gods and telling us what we are and deciding and making decisions on, rather than us being the decision makers, then we're gonna end up back where we started.
I don't think there's an option for the advisors to be involved, Shira, because for a start, Anne Andrews, who led the review, is retiring next month. And as far as the advisors are concerned, they have finished their work on the syllabus. So that's what I meant about there's a process to be gone through, that if this committee, when we vote again, does vote to extend the syllabus review period, the next step is to think, okay, what do we want? How do we want to structure that review? How are we going to take forward the review?
Okay.
But that's for discussion after we know that that's what people want to do.
Because we could review the syllabus, change the syllabus. It doesn't need that much work.
I agree.
And have a vote in June. And Reading could do the same. We could work with Reading, make the changes that are needed. They could have been made already. I already did all the work. I've made a detailed document.
I agree, but that shouldn't.
Yeah. But the reviewing of the whole process as well, I think, should be done
At the end of the process.
At the end of the process.
Shame.
Emily.
So just to add one more thing on the syllabus to update people, there is a training event planned that hopefully the teachers in the group are aware of, because it's a training event for teachers on the syllabus is happening on the 27th of March. Now, when we last had a hub meeting, there was awareness that Reading needed to vote again on the syllabus. So there was a discussion about what do we do about the training event. But the advisors who are planning the training have said that even if there isn't a pan-Berkshire syllabus and Sacres in Berkshire end up having slightly different syllabuses, the training will still be relevant and useful because it's going to be broadly on the approach that the syllabus takes rather than on the details. So the feeling is that the training will still be useful to teachers and will obviously refer to the syllabus as a proposed syllabus that will look slightly different in different local authorities, maybe.
Is this training going to be pushing the worldviews framework and indoctrinating teachers?
I don't think, yeah, I don't think it's appropriate for us to, I mean, I haven't seen training and make comments on that. Okay, so Emily, item 5.
Oh, sorry.
Constitution.
Just the constitution. It's a very quick one. So when I at the last meeting, I shared a draft constitution for the Sacre, and people were broadly approving of it, but there were some changes requested. So in the agenda, you've got the constitution with the bits that I've subsequently changed, highlighted in yellow. And I did go through and make all the changes that people had requested. So I can talk about those if people would like me to, or if people are happy. I mean, it's quite an easy thing to check the changes that were requested in the minutes of the last meeting, and then see the changes that I've made highlighted in yellow. Hopefully people are happy, or I can go through each one and explain why I made the change if you would like me to.
I'm happy to accept it with the changes you've marked.
I don't feel there's a need. I mean,
Yeah,
I could go through it. There's just one question I have. So I looked at Sacre's recommended code of conduct, and our code of conduct has a whole section to do with social media. And I just
what page?
I'm trying to
Page 30,
I remember seeing it on the online.
It's 18.3, I think.
I think in social media. And I'm just a little bit concerned because the word offensive means so many different things. If what you mean by offensive is people being abusive, then that's already covered by. I would prefer if the word offensive were replaced with the word abusive, because the word offensive, some people think that if you call a man, that's offensive. I mean, we've gotten all sorts of discussions, you know, with the sort of the Peggy versus Dr. Upton case, people claiming that it's offensive to refer to a male doctor as a male doctor. People will say that that's offensive. And I have personally been at the receiving end of people claiming something is offensive, which is not offensive, just because they're basically exerting power. The word offensive is very easily weaponized. I would rather that the word abusive were put instead of the word offensive to avoid that risk.
I would need to double check on this, but I've got a feeling that is aligned with the Wokingham Borough Council constitution, which the proposal is by Wokingham Borough Council that the Sacre constitution becomes part of the Wokingham Borough Council constitution. So there wouldn't be any point in us changing a word in our constitution if it's used in the Wokingham Borough Council constitution, because we're actually subject to the WDC constitution.
In that case, I'd like it minuted that the word offensive there, that we understand it to mean abusive. And we don't understand it to mean taking political opinions that other people disagree with, or people take offense because they disagree with you. People get very emotional sometimes about people saying things. And I mean, for example, some things I might find offensive, like someone saying the river to the sea. I might find that offensive. I don't think I have a right to stop somebody from being on a Sacre because they post that on their Twitter, even though I find it offensive.
I'd support Shearer in that, and I think we could use abusive as well if the Constitution allows it, because they are two separate offences and perceived differently.
Abusive is really the thing that you want to avoid. Is people who can't be sort of cordial and civilized.
Do we need to vote? Because I'm.
It's to agree because it is a change.
Yeah.
That's a changing.
I didn't notice it before, and I realized that's actually, this actually does matter.
For example, there are items of different religious texts.
Yes,
People may find offensive.
yes, definitely. People find all sorts of things offensive. And we have a right to be offensive in a free society.
I mean, what?
I think you agree with that, don't you?
Yeah, I won't elaborate any further than that, but yeah, there's clearly, yeah, I'm not going to not be offensive, I'm not going to elaborate any further, but yeah, there's clearly things that people could tweet from their own religious texts that other members of the Sacre may find offensive.
I think we need further clarity though, because also this is supposed to align with things such as the no-known principles as well. I think, Emily, you need to go away and just see clarity from some legal and Wokingham before we can agree to those changes.
Just want to be careful because it could be weaponized.
Just say something. This is due to the council. And
It is.
You will need clarity before we meet again. So is it acceptable if Emily makes the research double check and then people agree via email?
Yes.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
I'll let you know.
Do we need to agree on that? Or can it not? Because I mean, I don't know, personally, I'm quite happy for you to just make a call on that.
And equally, I don't know if we have a say on the constitution.
Yeah, but I don't think
because it's a local authority one, isn't it? That's as a committee, we are convened by the local authority, it's for the local authority.
Yeah.
That was my understanding from Ming and Emma when we met with them.
We need to make sure it aligns with the council.
Yeah, I think that let's minute that point, and I'm happy for somebody else to take that away and action it. But I don't think that needs. I don't think specific word needs voting on right now.
If we understand that we are that as a Sacre that we do not understand the word offensive in our constitution to mean when people take offense, and we're talking about people, for example, throwing like slurs at people, and that's what we're talking about. That as long as we understand that, if we know from a sort of my law and economics background, if it's understood that people know they mean what they mean by a word is the thing that they mean by the word, and that's what the word means. So as long as we understand that, and it's minuted that we understand it that way, then that's what it means.
No, it's what the council says.
Really?
Yeah, because
it's their document.
Yeah.
Well, then it needs clarifying. It needs clarifying.
Can we leave it to Emily to sort out?
Sorry,
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
It's probably this likely that the state of us in the meeting because we're convened by the local authority. We don't get the right to get them. Okay, Emily. To you again, item number 5.
Okay, so how are things in Woking schools? So I would say that the challenges I've mentioned at previous meetings are ongoing, and as always, I'd say to the teachers in the room, please contradict me or add to what I'm saying. Busier than ever in schools, I would say it continues to be. And some of the challenges that I've previously mentioned around things like recruiting teachers and support staff continue to be a challenge, although the new government did approve a pay rise for teachers when they first came into office. So I think that's been helpful to an extent. Schools are still supporting children to recover from the impact of the pandemic, which seems to have had really far-reaching impact. Not only in terms of academically, but also well-being, behaviour, personal development. Still, and it's also had an impact on attendance that is ongoing. I think a really major challenge for schools at the moment is the increase in children with special educational needs and the lack of suitable places for some of those children who really should not be in mainstream schools, but there isn't a specialist provision for them. So schools are in some cases dealing with children who have very complex needs that they're having to try and meet. So locally and central government are looking at this, and in Wokingham there are plans to develop additional special educational needs provision. I think the cost of living crisis is ongoing, and that's affecting the families that schools work with.
And the new government has said that they're going to have a real focus on child poverty, which should help to take the pressures off schools eventually.
They've just started rolling out free breakfast clubs.
That's, yeah, there's a big
No waiting school. Is it? Oh, there is a part of the pies.
It's a pilot.
Is it something like deprivation?
Yeah, it's a pilot at the moment, but in the end, the plan is for every primary school to have a free breakfast club.
Emily, do you mind if I just bring Sarah in?
Yes.
Yeah, I also wanted to mention, you said, Emily, about the teacher pay rise. What also needs to be pointed out, I don't know if everybody's aware, that the government has not agreed to fund it. So this will directly affect schools because the 2.8% pay rise that the government has recommended, so far the teachers review body has not come up with their recommendation, but at the moment, if it goes through anyway, that will come out from central schools budgets. So as well as the cost of electricity and everything else, and also national insurance going up, they will have to fund the increase in teachers' wages all directly from their budgets. That's going to have a big impact on all the schools because their finances are going to be constrained even more.
Yeah, thank you, Sally. So there's a couple of big national things on the horizon. So the government are undertaking a review of the curriculum and assessment, and the initial report on that is due to come out by the end of this term. So that's going to be really interesting. There's also a consultation at the moment from Ofsted on their new approach to Ofsted inspections. And I think it's safe to say that as far as the teaching unions and teachers are concerned, there's been quite a lot of disappointment expressed in that report card, which is not as different from the current system as teachers were hoping it would be. So yeah, there's a lot going on, I think it's safe to say. I don't know if any of the teachers would like to add to that.
Sarah?
I can add about the report card is supposed to have, I think it's 7 sections, and there's supposed to be different categories for each section. So there's a lot of schools thinking, what the hell is this going to mean? Because it means for a whole variety of areas, they are going to get reports back. So there's a lot of people thinking, wow, we don't know what this is coming on top of the review of the curriculum, where's that going? And of course, with all these financial implications. So trying to get people to come into schools, let alone stay in schools, is going to be a major hurdle. And if the school can afford to keep who they have got as well.
Are there any other questions?
Bad news.
Yeah. Can I ask what contact we have with our academies now? Because we've got more and more schools becoming academies.
Yeah, I think we've got Philip's head teacher of a school that's an academy. I think we have really good engagement with our academy. I mean, for all our network meetings, for example, are free of charge to schools, and we include academies in that. So we have just as many teachers from academies coming to our meetings as we do other schools. So, yeah.
And there's an active involvement still from academies to be working with local authorities still, in everyone's interest still to be supportive of each other. So stuff that we run is then open to all schools in Wokingham as well, and likewise we make sure that we ask to voice and attend local authority as well.
That's really good to hear, because Wayne-Dawes is growing continually. It's going to be practically all of Woodley, some of Early, eventually. So that's good.
Yeah, there's a lot of collaboration.
Yeah.
You still have your sign. You still have your sign as an academy. You're not going to get that.
Any other questions for Emily? Emily, I think 6.
Okay, so development plan and budget. So so you've got the development plan, which is on page 37. Obviously, we're coming to our development plan is done on the basis of financial years, because obviously it's linked to funding. So we're coming to the end of our current development plan. So at the moment, I haven't drawn up a draft plan for the new financial year. What usually happens is our core business remains the same. So on page 37, we've got Phil membership vacancies, Sacre members attend termly Sacre meetings, Sacre members attend networks and training events and or visit local schools. We've got produce the annual report, review the action plan at each meeting and update it, subscribe to Sacre and attend the annual Sacre conference and AGM. So those things we tend to keep in every year. Then section B is about the support that we give to teachers. And again, in recent years, these things have always stayed the same. So we've got provide 2 termly primary network meetings, 2 secondary network meetings, and 1 cross-phase network meeting for Woking teachers. And also to do a subject leader training session for primary schools.
Well, I was sorry, but it was really good.
Oh, thanks.
With that Laycock and.
Oh, yes, that was a
Did you
primary
listen?
network, wasn't it?
It was superb. It
Yeah.
was really, really good.
Excellent, thank you. Yeah, and to mention that because our advisors come from RE Today, what tends to happen is if teachers request a particular focus in a network meeting, like on that occasion that Julie's referring to, teachers had said they would really like to look at floor books in RE. And because Lat, who works for RE Today, is an expert on that, he came to deliver that instead of Angela. And then the final section of the development plan is about the Pan Berkshire Hub. Now that is something that we do need to raise because Anne Andrews has been coordinating the hub for some time. And as I mentioned, she's retiring. So we've reached a point in the hub where every Sacre in Berkshire has been asked to consider what we would like the hub to look like going forward, if we would still like to be part of a hub. Obviously, there are cost implications because the way it has been working is that every Sacre has given a financial contribution to the hub every year. But there have been Pan Berkshire projects that have happened, like some of you might remember the Real People, Real Faith project, which was really excellent. I think teachers really liked it, where the hub filmed members of faith communities being interviewed about their faith, and those were available as a learning resource.
On the Sacre or Sacre website.
Yeah. So although there is a cost, there are also kind of economies of scale in working together on projects like that. So so I guess, yeah, it would be probably people need some time to think about it, I guess. But if there's anything in that section B about how we support teachers, or if people have any thoughts about the hub, and if we did continue with the hub, what kind of work we'd like the hub to do, how we'd like the hub to be structured. This is an opportunity to sort of have a completely fresh start in terms of the hub. So
Is that what we decided we weren't going to discuss tonight? Because
No.
No, it's still it's the hub. How, when do we need to let Anne know?
well, I mean, she's leaving, so
But what we did
Don't
historically,
forget.
because when Jan stepped down, whoever else, there was no one stepped down, then one of the advisors interviewed and stepped into the hub role.
yeah, I think what I remember Anne saying that if the Sacres decide they still want a hub, the diocese that employs Anne might potentially still be interested in running it. But we would first of all need to let them know that we do still want a hub and we would be interested in leading it, I think. So
I'm a bit uneasy about it just being the diocese. I think if we are going to continue with the hub, I think it should go out to tender. I think everyone should have a fair opportunity.
yeah.
I just really have the
diocese funding and to run the hub, or are we paying?
Every Sacre.
Okay, so that is quite important.
Etc. Yeah,
Yeah,
so she was,
Discovery. Wasn't
yeah,
it?
Discovery. So she led it first
Yeah.
because it was her, Joe, and Anne all
Yeah.
interviewed because they were the advisors. They all interviewed and we gave it to Jan. Then Jan stepped back, and then I don't know if Alison did it for a little bit.
Yeah, she did. It was for a short while.
So that was a very short period.
And then it became Anne.
I personally think, I agree with there's been misgivings across the board, possibly with the syllabus, and maybe some of that lies with the hub. But over the last, that aside, and I get there's big issues with it that need to be resolved. But I think over the last, how many years have we been part of the hub? It has done some really, really good and beneficial things with the Crossing the Bridges project.
For teachers.
Very supportive for teachers, the real people, real faith. This syllabus aside, the syllabus before the hub led on as well, and the one before
I
that.
think we've done about 3 or 4 syllabi.
There are different roles for the hub, and for those different roles, you need different. So I mean, I think, but when it comes to the matter of syllabus review, that really needs to be dealt with in a way where you replicate the representation you have within a Sacre, where you have faith communities at the table. If it's a matter of training teachers and giving advice to teachers to support to teachers, then what you need is education professionals, unless it is that they need support to do with particular religions, in which case you call in your faith reps, or particularly faith reps that have educational backgrounds, such as me and my husband, and then there are others. So you have these different, and maybe we've put all these things together into one organization, and maybe that there's the hub sort of supporting teachers, and separate there is the sort of Berkshire RE sort of syllabus review committee where when you're going to be discussing this or that or the other, you make sure you've got the correct stakeholders at the table for that thing.
But I think with the hub's operation, you do need to have a Berkshire syllabus ideally for it to be at its most effective.
I still
if
think
you're not working on the same framework, then you know then your training and the materials that you produce to support the work of teachers, it gets more complicated. The fact that, you know, in this occasion there have been some failings in the process. I think the idea should be to correct that process rather than remove it from the hub. And I think we can work on that once we've got our syllabus.
It's entirely likely that these revisions are needed to the syllabus. What we want, we don't want there not to be a Berkshire syllabus. What we wanted from the start was for the Berkshire syllabus to actually be produced in a way that's genuinely consultative and respectful faith communities, as opposed to us being like data to be observed. That still could be the case, so we still can do that, and to design a new sort of way in which Berkshire, we with real respect, where we're not feeling like we're having to bash down doors to be heard. I think that is possible. It doesn't mean a change of attitude from decision makers, but it had a little bit of humility by certain individuals would help.
Do we need to, as a Sacre vote, we want to carry on to do that? I don't know if people want to go away and think about it. I mean, historically, we've sort of voted when it's come up as an item. I don't know if people want to go away and think about it.
Can I just say, for the sake of our staff, our children and our teachers who move around within the county, to have a syllabus that goes Berkshire, I think is an advantage if we can achieve it.
The syllabus bit aside, because that's what we're saying is, are we going to carry on just with the hub as a whole, and then we can delegate down to the hub what we want to do?
Who's the hub for?
Say again?
Who's the hub for? Is it just saying if it's for teachers, then it's really, really useful.
Teachers and the young people and children we teach, and we feed into it. I agree with your point, Sheila, that possibly that organisational structure needs looking at the hub, but that's something we can sort of suggest to them moving forward. We've always been, I think, the trailblazers with the hub and really banging the drum for it.
Because they've been really great at resources and things like that for teachers, really hands-on. So even, you know, essentially, regardless if it's Berkshire or whatever, it's a broad stroke when we speak to the hub, and they're giving us information and resources. So it doesn't have to be exactly the same.
No, it doesn't.
So I think it's still useful, whether you're talking about Berkshire syllabus or not. I keep saying it's a resource for teachers and young children, young people, and I think it's still really valid.
When we spoke to the head of education for Reading, Sophie and I, Sophie, my husband's on the Reading Sacre, we spoke with the head of education for Reading, and he pointed out that you can the councils local authorities in Berkshire can band together and still pool resources and have a syllabus which is broadly the same, with some variations between it doesn't, there's a median, there's a sort of in between thing where you have Town Berkshire syllabus framework, and then, by the way, if you're in this particular authority, we're going to ask you to do Islam, and in this, whatever, which sort of religions are mandatory or optional, or whatever, that can be variations, and then but you can still have a broadly similar framework which allows you to cooperate. It doesn't have to be one or the other, like a 0-1 decision.
It still didn't find all the beautiful archives that came down from Berkshire, which seems to have evaporated.
The Bracknell ones.
Yeah, they were at East Hampstead.
Yeah, they were.
Like
There was a whole room
resources
full of stacks there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
In Bracknell,
They were at East Hampstead Park.
Yeah, that room.
I've just been appointed doing Bracknell, so I can ask.
It is now.
You get a medal if you find it.
It's just all cupboards full of stuff.
So in terms of moving us forward, I mean, it sounds very positive.
Yeah.
So you don't have one person, one vote, because we're supposed to committees.
Well, I don't know. On a matter like this, it's not that we have to vote in groups if it's a formal recommendation to the local authority, but I don't think that falls under this. This is not something you're recommending to the local authority. This is a decision that the Sacre is making.
So those in favour of us continuing to support the hub, and the other local authorities may say actually don't want to, so then cross that bridge when we get
And the
there.
nature of the hub to be determined.
Yeah.
Yeah, but under the new sort of leadership. Yeah, so those in favour of yes, continuing.
Wow.
Kieran, are you putting on spot the only person? So no's, any votes for no's? Take your hands down.
Yes.
And abstentions? Kieran can't hear us. I don't think it's everyone by one. I'm not sure if Kieran can hear it.
But.
Emily, is it you and yours?
Yeah, I was just going to talk briefly about the budget. There's a budget update on page 41 and 42, and you can see that our total spend up until about 2 weeks ago when I created the document was 5,940. Now, although it says our total planned spending is 8,702, we did actually, that represents an overspend of the budget that we actually get given by the council, because the council recognises that costs go up every year, but actually they can't increase the money they give us. So we planned a budget of 8,762, which has actually ended up costing quite a bit less. And one of the main reasons for that is that this year, the hub, we thought they were going to ask us for £900 from each Sacre, as they have done in previous years, but actually they didn't need to because they had surplus funds remaining from previous years. So that was nice. We didn't need to pay. We have got a few other bits of spending to come. So I think probably we'll end up spending about 6,300-ish, which means of the money we're actually given, which is 6,800, we'll have about £500 probably left over. Yeah, I think that's probably what will be our final position at the end of the year.
I assume there's no carry through, we're not allowed to hold on to it.
Not allowed to hold on to it.
Even if we've put like a potential project at PNR.
When does our financial year end?
The end of March.
Should we have a big party?
I'm just thinking if potentially there is going to be changes to the syllabus, that's.
You need that money.
That's true. Yeah, I mean, I can ask.
Forward,
I
it
can
would
ask.
just be useful to have
Yeah.
that additional £500 for that contingency if there just changes.
Yeah, I would definitely ask.
Oh, just screwing it up.
I think if definitely in the past, I'm sure we'll have a word with Steve and sort something.
No pressure.
We had a meeting last night.
Yeah, it's literally not, it's the branding.
I'll just pass it in.
I mean, I managed to get £15,000 for CCTV. But
Yeah, and then they send it back, they said we didn't need it.
Yeah.
Yeah, apparently, so they've now. I'll try and take you.
Okay, I'm just really mindful of time, sorry. Can we just crack on? So Emily, and your report.
Yeah, so members might remember that back in December, we emailed to you the annual report for the last academic year, which we had to submit to the DFE and Sacre by the end of December. Then what we normally do, because that has to be in a very dry format, we normally reformat it by our design team, and they make it look all colourful and attractive, and then we share it with schools. This year, there's been a delay in doing that because they have been really late in publishing the GCSE and A-level results, which we like to include in our annual report. So we do now have GCSE results, which I've included in the agenda pack. We still don't have A-level results, I think, do we?
No, I don't.
So, yeah, just to highlight, our GCSE results in Wokingham are again really strong when you compare them to the national outcomes. And equally, when you look at the percentage of our students who are entered for the GCSE, it's above the national percentage. It is, the figures in brackets are for previous years. So several years ago, Wokingham used to enter 66% of students for the GCSE, and we now only enter 44%. But that is still above the national average. So.
What do you know why that's dropped?
I think, well, we did do a very much linked to that recently. Well, it was back in summer term 2024. We did a survey of our secondary schools and asked them lots of questions about how many specialist teachers of RE do you have, how much time do you dedicate to teaching RE, etc. And if you've got challenges, what are those challenges? And you've actually got that survey results in your agenda pack. And if you look at page 49, I think a really interesting question is the final question we answered in the survey, which was, tell us what you see as the main challenges for RE at your school. And so we've got recruitment of subject specialist teachers, a lack of trainee teachers in religious studies, finding RS teachers, another school said, and one school, interestingly, said low student demand, despite a lot of positive engagement at Key Stage 3. So that's interesting, but it does reflect the national picture, doesn't it, Ian, that fewer students are being entered for GCSE and A-level.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
I
believe.
Well, sorry, it doesn't appear to be that if you look at the table on the page where page 43, where Wokingham was dropped from 66 to 44. Nationally, it's the same.
True, yeah.
So it's just not.
It's dropping here, but
Well, so
Sorry, Alex, because a couple of people have it first. I don't need to be your next. I'm just going to jump in really super quick. Emily, the number of students entered for GCSEs, are you taking it from year 11? Because the number of our Wokingham schools enter RS in year 10.
That is a good question. Yeah, I might need to check that. Yeah.
I'm looking at these numbers, and I'm suspecting the 66 maybe have been some sort of calculation error.
Yeah, I
guess 44, 42, 45. I would go back and check that 66.
Yeah, I can do that.
Just, if you see what I mean?
Yeah.
If it would make more sense if it was 46.
I know a large number of our schools previously would have been ahead of RS. We did used to teach all of our students on the school that I taught, they now do.
Yeah, but it's just so strange.
It's
just strange how it dropped 20 when if you look at are these sort of consecutive years? So in recent years it's stable.
If enough schools like that similar time dropped it as a compulsory subject.
Maybe
my school it was a compulsory subject.
In which case it was a one-off event, and we shouldn't be looking at the 66. We should be looking at more recent years and not be so terrified. But can I ask a question? Because some years ago I went to forget what it was. It was some sort of, I don't know whether it was hub or I can't remember. There was teachers and Sacre reps. It was in a school, and I got chatting with teachers. And one of the things I remember asking them, is like, what do you need? And they were like, hey, we need more help on Islam. I remember that. But also, the teacher told me about the fact that a lot of the students don't do the GCSE in religious education or spiritual studies, but instead they do this thing called cultural studies. And that actually it was wonderful, and the kids got so much out of it. And in many ways, it may be better because it wasn't graded and the kids were disengaged. Does that still exist?
Well, again, that comes out in the answers to this survey. So if you look at them, some of them, there's questions about, like question 1, is RE taught as a discrete subject at your school? So 4 schools said yes. 1 school said it's discrete apart from in year 11, when it's sort of combined as part of PSHE. And 1 school said no, we teach RS as part of belief and life in Key Stage 3 and 4 and part of enrichment in Key Stage 5. So 2 schools said it varies depending on key stage. So it is combined into other sort of top subjects in some schools.
I understand, because if cultural studies is a thing, are we giving any guidance for that?
I haven't heard of cultural studies being mentioned. I don't think.
That's what this teacher told me about.
As a GCSE.
It's like an alternative to doing RF. It was a few years ago.
Yeah, I think some schools, like you say, they do it as an alternative to RS, but actually in terms of being a formalised GCSE, it's not.
No, it wasn't a GCSE, it wasn't graded. But she said that the kids loved it and got so much out of it, even though it wasn't graded. And whether we give any guidance for that is the question.
A document that really supplements this is this extra handout that is not in the agenda pack, but this multicoloured one. I don't know if everyone got through, but this is
Some students don't do it.
Emily, thank you, Emily.
This is data that Ian sourced for us, which is taken from the school census workforce data. And this is these are Wokingham schools, which obviously I've anonymised. So you can see that 2 schools didn't respond to the survey at all out of our 9 secondary schools. But the ones that did respond have said what percentage of the timetable in each year group is spent teaching RE. I think there is a bit of a caveat about this because, as we've just been saying, some schools RE is part of the SHE or something, they call it something different. So they might not answer the question in the same way as other schools have answered it. So I think there is a little bit of caveat with these figures, but you can see, for example, that school 6 has indicated they don't teach any RE to year 7, 8 or 9, but then starting stage 4, which is a bit strange. Comparing this to when we got this data the previous year, it's pretty much in line. There is a slight drop, I think, in terms of in year 7 and 8, some of the percentages were higher last year, but broadly it's pretty much in line. And in terms of year 12 and year 13, I know we've got at least, I think it's just 1 secondary school that doesn't have year 12 and 13, so obviously they're going to say 0. And I think there must be an error where it's got that 13.48% for year 9. Either it's combined with another subject or they've put the wrong data in, because I don't think that could be right. So
do we guess with school 5 that then it's like you said, perhaps to take the GCSE early, the year early?
Yes, they must do the GCSE in year 10.
And then it pick it up again now.
Yeah.
And school 3, they just don't do it all in year 10 and they do it all in year 11.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I see that.
Yeah.
And school 6 probably only has years 10 and 11.
Yeah, we don't have a school that only has year 10 and so they must call it something different in Key Stage 3, I imagine. And then
strange.
Yeah.
It's weird.
So
to answer your question, GCSE RE is not statutory, but in our agreed syllabus, the old one and in the new one, we say that all young people should study a course and ideally an approved GCSE course. And our expectation is they do the exam, but we can't. It's Ofsted.
But this school is from year 7, 8, 9, not any.
And that's Ofsted.
yeah. So if that is really the case, because as I say, they might be covering the RE curriculum through something that they don't call RE. They might call it
Life study or something.
That seems a bit
It could be a special school or something like that. They're in.
I don't think any of these were special. These were all mainstream, weren't they?
Yeah.
In year
Key Stage 4.
Yes.
Or so
yeah.
it could be added to, I don't know. Are there any other questions for Emily around the school secondary stuff? Okay, next item on the agenda is item 9, feedback from teacher network and training opportunities. And giving stuff a lot of
Yeah, that's just, there's a document in the pack that really says everything that needs to be said. It's just saying that we've had, since our last Sacre meeting, we've had 2 training events for teachers. One was a cross-phase network meeting that Ian led, that was really well attended. And the other one was for primary school RE leaders. That wasn't so well attended. We only had 8 teachers there. One of the people that did come found it very helpful. And then we've got 2 network meetings coming up later this month, one secondary and one primary, which as usual, Sacre members are very welcome to attend if they would like to. Both are going to be online from 4 till 6 p.m. or 5:30. And they are focusing on the syllabus, but they won't be affected by the detail of the syllabus, because what they're going to focus on is broadly the pedagogy behind the syllabus rather than the detail. So,
what evaluations you get? To the people who attend, they can do an evaluation for them. Be useful to see some of the comments and impacts.
yeah, so if they're online, teachers tend to post a comment in the chat often at the end of the meeting, just saying something really brief like, thank you, that was so useful. And that's where when it says it's very well received, it's either verbal comments that teachers made or things they typed in the chat, but we don't. I think if it was in person, we might give them a sort of formal feedback form, but online we tend to just...
Everybody rushes right at the end because
Yeah.
everybody's desperate to go, if I'm absolutely honest.
Yeah.
It's late by then.
One of the things we will be doing now is at the end of the training, this is something new, there will be a QR code. And the QR code will then, so what we'll do is send the presentation out with the QR code to colleagues who attend the training. They can then evaluate it and we can pass that information straight to you. So we're going to do that now for all our training online. So from next week, that will be the case, that it will be a QR code that secondary school teachers will then be able to access.
I think it's
to evaluate it.
Yeah.
For us just to sort of see the impact of the training or funding it. And it's nice for them to see.
And I do always say in the introduction, I'm here because I'm the link with the Sacre.
No, and then when it goes quiet, you say, Sam, you can answer.
Yeah.
It's exactly what you did.
Yeah, there was a bit of a quiet.
One more moment, which is I just pick on Sam.
The only face I recognise. Yeah. So.
Okay, item 10, national updates again.
Yeah, so we've included on pages 53 onwards the national update from NATRE and from RE today. We have had the feedback from the primary provision survey, and this has also been sent to the curriculum assessment review that Becky Francis is undertaking at the moment. She asked for a call for evidence from NATRE and subject associations for the new review of the curriculum, and we do know that NATRE have met with Becky Francis to talk through this as well. So you can see there the headlines around there, the idea of that actually in the primary phase, 35% of school in primary say there is no budget for RE at all outside the general school budget. So actually it's not resourced in the same way we see with English and maths and science as the core subjects. But the idea is that there is funding there available for school. That was an interesting comment to come through. The other comment coming through as well is actually we are noticing a real trend that RE coordinators in the primary phase are staying in the job for longer. Because usually it used to be, yeah, let's move on to something else. And now we're actually finding that RE, because of the deep and meaningful report, which is in here as well, that was Richard Quay's report just before he left Ofsted, and he and I were talking about it last week when I met with him, is the fact that people are now really staying in the job longer in the primary phase. And you can see there, for example, it says there that actually 42% now of RE coordinators in the job for 5 or more years. So we are seeing that continuity of the curriculum over time.
So even if they don't have specialized training, they will be learning on the job.
Yeah, yeah. Because in the past it used to be somebody's new, here's RE, oh, well, you've done it for a year, right, I'll move you on to something else. But actually we're now seeing the importance that SLT at primary are really placing on RE. And I think that, and we can see that in those areas as well. And the idea is it's much more the idea of much more experienced teachers now leading it than happened before as well. Often now that ECTs don't get, or the ECT framework, now ECT should not really be getting a management responsibility in primary school. But that's one. With right of withdrawal is still very interesting, and it's something that has been commented on. That's in the report to Becky Francis's review, that actually the right of withdrawal is mainly because parents are asking for their children not to learn about faith other than their own. But actually, there's been asked some clarification around this one, because some schools are withdrawing children from the teaching of RE for other subject areas, which actually goes against equality in the curriculum. But also the letter of the law, the 1944 Act, states that it should be for the parents to withdraw them, not the school, for extra tuition.
Sorry, what?
So in some schools, children are maybe withdrawn for extra tuition from RE lessons. But actually, what's being really clarified at the moment is actually it's the parent withdrawing them, not the school deciding to withdraw a child from the teaching of RE. And that's something naturally is made really clear to schools, that it's a parental stroke carer right to withdraw.
Some schools withdrawing kids from RE?
Some have done in the past for extra tuition if they've got SEND or for literacy. And it's been made very clear for NATRE that is not the case. It's the parents withdrawing them, not. And the idea is that the understanding of the right of withdrawal is that they are then provided with, they are withdrawn from the content of the subject, not the subject itself. And that's a really key thing. And on the NATRE website, there's NHT guidance, which was written with NATRE, that actually you will, because RE is part of the basic curriculum, you should still be having RE lessons. So if you withdraw from the content of your school, parents should be providing extra tuition that is still RE. And anecdotally, I'll give you an example that I was deputy head in a high school for 14 years before I decided I didn't want to be a head teacher and left and joined this organisation. Nowadays, sorry, I didn't make a situation, that was enough. But the issue was that I had a number of students withdrawn from a religion at GCSE to study their own religion at GCSE. And so that is acceptable under the right to withdrawal legislation. However, if I say I don't want my child to do that, I want to do extra reading, that is not acceptable. It's to do with it's the content you withdraw from, not the subject. That's really been made clear.
Yeah, my son was allowed to do Judaism as a focus.
Yes, yeah.
When he was running.
Yeah.
Do we know which particular group the withdrawal?
A lot of the Hindu community are withdrawing so that they study the Hindu Dharma as part of their GCSE, because the majority of GCSE studies are Abrahamic faiths, and therefore Dharmic faiths.
Yeah.
Members of the Dharmic faiths want them to follow those ones. That was the case in my own area. And I was chair of my Sacre for 14 years, and it was something that we'd seen growing over time. But it does tend to be that schools have chosen an Abrahamic faith. But it is literally dependent on the school. The parent does not have to give a reason why they want their child to withdraw. But we have got that guidance that was formulated with the NHT, and it is, I know, something that the curriculum assessment review is looking at, saying should that still be there. We've also got the work of the RE hubs I've mentioned there. So the RE hubs have been set up by NATRE and the RE Council of England and Wales to provide training and support to schools. And they have a list of speakers and places of worship. And they also offer training for members of faith communities who want to go into schools. And they will then put their materials out there into schools and say, because it's very key to get the people in as well. I've mentioned that the NATRE have responded to the call for evidence. And one of the things they've talked about is the idea of there's a lot of content in RE, which sometimes is making the depth not as prominent as the breadth. So we found some RE curriculum are very broad. And actually one of the things is getting people to understand the depth of religion and the importance of religion as a lived faith. So there is that information, but as Emily says, we are awaiting Becky's first report. One thing she has said, if anything is taken out, or if anything is to be added in, something's got to be taken out. So at the moment, we're really not sure what's going to happen across the whole curriculum at the moment. It's the whole curriculum at the moment, is really.
Can I ask a question about that breadth and depth? Because I remember this was actually a couple of days ago, I was having a conversation with my dad about how history is taught in this country. And obviously at GCSE, by that point, when you're actually sitting those exams, it's not really testing history skills as more as it is kind of comprehension, sort of more fundamental things like that. But I said to my dad that I thought pre-GCSE history, it would be a lot more useful if they did breadth over depth, because I've got loads of like in-depth knowledge of like the Roman Empire in the whatever century rattling around in there. And yet I know nothing about like, I mean, the British Empire is one that everyone always talks about. I know about it now because I've researched it in my own time, but
The Greeks and Persians.
Exactly, and we know all this like really in-depth stuff about stuff that happened like thousands of years ago that just isn't relevant today. I wondered if kind of what is the thinking of you know, I suppose professionals in this field about, is it better to, if you're covering a religion, is it better to cover the breadth and make sure that all of the kind of key aspects of a religion are covered, or is it better to kind of narrow down into certain concepts in a lot more depth? Because I would say again, once you get to GCSE, you're passing exams which get put on your CV and then testing your ability to perform a certain function, right? So that's different. But I think before then, I would personally argue that breadth is more important than depth. I think having a total understanding of a religion is better than having a really in-depth understanding.
My daughter was really upset because she was like, I don't know anything about James. And then, like, they could have done like one day. Just lessons. I mean, I don't understand just the value. They want, but just like a small, a little bit.
I've got a friend who's
it would be good. I think we're missing trade.
The issue that came out from the moving forward, so Stephen moving forward, in the report that came out from the review of Ofsted reports was that actually when Ofsted inspectors in maintained schools and academies were talking to children, there were a lot of misconceptions.
Yeah.
Because they literally had a very broad stroke of we're having an hour on X. That's what they're trying to argue, is the fact that in depth you challenge more the misconceptions.
So I first meeting we had on the show spoke about cultural literacy.
Yes.
Right. Is that being achieved, or is that kind of one of the key focuses in when they're sort of making these decisions? Is that, because for me, I would argue that ought to be the kind of number one priority. Is misconceptions.
And you can fail to achieve cultural literacy. Look at the Judaism GCSE, where they spend like half the time on life after death. So you can fail to achieve cultural literacy even with death when you ask the wrong questions. So it's not necessarily.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how things have moved on, but I know I was in year 7 10 years ago, and people of my age, I think, have a lot of misconceptions about what Christian faith is, what's actually important about it. I've had so many people that I've spoken to, and they go, well, I quite like the teachings of Jesus, but I probably wouldn't call myself so I call myself a Christian because I follow Jesus' teachings. I'm like, well, it's not really what it's about. It's about, it's about faith. It's about, salvation by faith. So there's I just thought I'd raise that as a point in terms of like.
This is the experience I find going in and teaching. It's all very well as having a syllabus, but a lot of schools, you've got teachers who are really busy. So most of the schools I go in are using either the Understanding Christianity from the Church of England diocese, or they're using the Discovery package. And that's the questions they use. And they have Christmas and Easter, and that's it. And so our children in our primary schools are learning about Christian faith, because that's what my area expertise is. They're learning about Jesus is born, Jesus dies, nothing in between, nothing about the richness of the Old Testament, how that impacts, nothing
and
about
the early church.
And they're going, well, did Jesus die again? I've had that question last week. Did Jesus die again? Because because they're getting snippets, and how to really, it is that breadth.
And then people that I still think it's the majority of people, even my age, have this perception that Christians believe that they need to be a good person and then they'll go to heaven. That's what Christianity is about. It's about being a good person, living like Jesus, and then you go to heaven. It's like, no, absolutely not.
That's what Jews think about non-Jews.
Yeah, but this is, so that's what I mean. I think, yeah, it's, yeah, I think that it has to be around, cultural history.
And the comments you're making are, they're nothing new. I mean, I'm an XRE teacher, 15 years in the classroom. Like, when I first started out my teaching career, this is always the issue and the battle we've had with sort of RE, like, do we get that breadth or that depth? And it's time, we've discussed earlier, like, we just don't get time. I can't tell you the amount of conversations and fights I've had with head teachers to protect subject time at sort of secondary level. But I don't think it's going to change anytime soon.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, unless we get a national, not necessarily national curriculum, but national entitlement where the government say this is X amount of hours you need. Julie?
So I think I was just going to probably it's always a real battle about, do you do so many lessons they don't remember any of it because they just got with everything? Do you spiral your curriculum so you come back to Easter but you look at it? Do you take all the different religions and compare their holy books so you know every religion has one? And with everything we're teaching, it has to be research based now. So EEF gives lots of research. So I think the way forward would be finding out what people research is. You can't learn everything. It's like you can't know all the history of the world from the amount of history lessons we have.
It's what are the four components that we remember?
Yeah,
they're all that sticky knowledge.
And if you look at the fact people fight about things, and here are the three key ones.
That's good. It's not. It's by no means a criticism of this teachers, because I mean the number of times I've gone to my church, I've listened to a sermon, and I sort of end up thinking, you weren't a Christian and you come to the service, you still wouldn't have any idea what Christianity is about. So I think that is a reflection of Christians, maybe more than anything else.
It's particularly with our new faith, it's really important to remember that school is an educational environment, not a faith building environment.
Yeah.
That's particularly when you've got faith yourself. It's working out, where am I educating you into who you might meet when you grow up, and what you need to understand about them when you meet them. And if it's your own faith, you need to go to those faith communities and really back to. But if it's education about people you might meet, then that's really interesting.
Yeah.
And Nigel would probably say something different from the pulpit, which is where he sits.
This is why I have found it so problematic, some of the aspects of the syllabus, because that they were spending time on a lot of other stuff, which could have been spent on this important concept. This philosophy, doing these philosophy things with 9-year-olds, to me, this seems like a complete and utter waste of time, and they don't have the foggiest clue about, the basic sort of what the Bible is.
Yeah, it's really. I do quite like philosophy for children actually, and they come up with some really good things, and it makes them think about what they're looking at rather than just accept it, which is quite important. That's
Yeah, and other than that one, it just is, there is still the Jerusalem Trust applications are open. And I've also put in there, which is funding for primary schools. And also ARIAC, the Association of RE Inspectors, has a meeting with, and we've put there for you, access to Hazel Henson, who's the new HMI for RE. If you wish to attend, there's a link there. And she'll talk about her vision for RE as now as the subject lead. And we know that Ofsted are, like I said earlier, going through a revision of its Ofsted framework. But actually, a predecessor, Richard Quay, has been very influential through the research review in 2021 and the Deeper Meaningful report. So there is the opportunity for members of the Sacre to meet with Hazel and to listen to what Hazel said about her direction for RE.
Feedback from the podcast was YouTube, which seemed a long time ago.
It was a very long time ago. I think there was some written in here. We went ages ago, and there was lots of work on their constitution because they're having to make themselves official. There was a good kind of overview and feedback of the year. For me, the highlight was that Blake off again in the afternoon. There was talk in the morning on the table I was and others about how you monitor what schools are doing and how you know that what you're asking them to deliver is being delivered. And then that took a completely different tack in the afternoon. It was like, don't wrap them over the knuckles for not doing it. Do stuff to support them, which I kind of think we do quite a lot of with the slippages. And then he literally went through about 30 odd ideas about how you read that.
No,
That just
But
is like
it's just-
him, though,
it's
isn't it?
strong.
he had, shall I say, let me in on it before he went. So can I just give you my speech and I'll let me know what you think.
So- And it was quite, I was looking at it, oh, that's a good idea, that's a good idea. And me being me, I was going to propose something here, if that's okay, or put some ideas. They were talking about Sacre's going into schools and doing things that support teaching rather than just ticking boxes off, which again, I don't think we do. People on my table, some of it, but I don't know if anyone's come across something called a faith forum.
Oh, yes.
And I wondered if it was something we could maybe think about looking at doing in the future. It would be group, people from different faiths. You kind of, I came across it.
What school was it? Maiden Early. I
Oh,
went
you mean
a
within
couple of times.
Within schools, Julie.
So the way when I did my Farmington, somebody had done a research project on it. It was really interesting, and there were different members from the different faith communities, different schools, and it was year 6 it was aimed at. They in their classrooms took 2 or 4 representatives from their class, and they asked their school what questions would you like to ask people from these different faiths, and then their representatives went and they effectively worked their way around the room and had conversations with people from different faiths, asking the questions that their classes
Like
had.
our ambassadors.
Yeah, and then they took them back to their schools and then shared the answers that they got from meeting these people. I felt, it might link secondary and primary. It might be a good way of getting year 6, bringing faith alive for year 6.
I'm sure my husband's been to a school that did one of those. Did you grandfather them?
I mean, it's not going to be on the site for ages. Like the films are there forever. It
Yeah.
would be but it would be in person, and it would be.
You don't want to recording it.
But
No, she's saying it would just be a different type of thing to
Yeah.
recordings.
Oh, right.
So it would
I
be
know
a
it's so much better to have the personal contact.
live in person
The
event.
personal contact.
I mean, seeing your thing about places that train people would be really useful to train, because that's the person who did it had spent time working with the different faith communities on how education works, and what we can do, we can't do, and how well to communicate with children. I just wondered, I'm throwing it as a suggestion, I don't think we should do it next week.
So we did it many years ago for the teachers at Wangels. So we had, and it was actually members from this Andrew came, yeah. And then all the different reps on the tables, the teachers came and spoke to them with some of their questions to get like a real lived experience, especially in some of their GCSEs. That was like a number of years ago, but the federations that you still have that working.
Don't forget, the teachers in Wilkingham to have an inset day for teachers who do RE in Wilkingham. And you can have someone like me or my husband and other people, similar people from other faiths, and sort of have series of sort of workshops for them to increase their knowledge. And we've done that sort of thing before.
That's what we're just saying.
It's a great thing to do. We haven't done it in a while.
It was a long time ago, 15 years ago.
It was a bit, not that quite. But it's something maybe we could suggest to some of our secondaries.
See what people think about it, because secondaries were big enough, primaries wouldn't have the space. But year 6 children ask really difficult questions, and they really want to know. I know a friend of mine zoomed into a year 6 class. He works at 24/7 parents like that. And he came back to school, they asked good questions, and they really did. Honestly, they were not going to be fobbed off.
No.
So yeah, I was going to propose that as maybe something as a project we could look to do next.
Can I just make one observation in terms of the resources from RE today? I just want to put a warning out. There's a new resource about Judaism. I think it's investigating Jewish worldviews from RE today, and it should not be used. It's not fit for purpose. I've tried to complain about it. It's just be aware that unfortunately RE today has a habit of putting out resources to do with faith groups about.
Sharing. Next slide for the agenda, Claire. I think this is a matter that's been on the agenda.
Yeah. I do have Cool. Yeah, so I did do some slides, but mainly I just wanted, I guess, to start in terms of my experience and how I came to humanism. So I think that was the approach I think John took. So I guess when I was younger, so I'm primary age, I would have gone to my mum would have taken me and my brother to Methodist church, so we did go to church regularly. I was at a Church of England school, but basically, I guess celebrations, so something like Christmas or Easter wasn't really, I guess, focused around religion. It was more kind of family time, and so God and religion weren't part of the conversation at home really. Then when I suppose came to secondary school and learning more about science and having friends who were atheists, I guess the idea of God that I had, I realised that didn't really make sense to me. But I suppose it wasn't until kind of, I suppose, later that kind of the things that followed from that kind of landed with me. So I think I still held on to kind of the idea that there was some kind of afterlife until that kind of came up in conversation. I couldn't square, if I don't believe in God, then actually it follows that I wouldn't believe in anything else. But I was, I suppose, later on still interested in developing my views and having those kind of big questions I think we talk about of how do I live my life, what's important, how should I treat people, and I guess trying to tackle those questions from a non-religious perspective. So in discussion with other people or things that I read. So particularly kind of later on kind of having an interest in philosophy, because I felt that these were kind of quite considered views, a considered way of looking at the world that isn't, well, for a lot of philosophers don't start from a belief in God or from kind of a religious book. And then I think so, but I suppose so. I knew I was atheist, but I think kind of there was a view of atheism kind of in the early 2000s play. So it was kind of the angry white man atheist who's just angry about, but and being angry about religion. But I never felt that was something I kind of that resonated with me. So it wasn't kind of a view I thought, I'm one of those guys. Later on, found out, kind of stumbled across humanism, but kind of initially I was quite, I suppose, skeptical. Is what are they really offering? It just kind of seemed like common sense. Why would you have that kind of organisation? But I think, I guess, later on when I looked into it more, I found out the kind of things that the humanists believed were the same things that I believed, but I'd come to those beliefs. So I'd had humanist beliefs for kind of a while before, I guess, recognising that I was a humanist and I wanted to say, oh, yes, I am a humanist. And so I think some of the things that I guess chimed with me was some of the work that Humanists UK do in terms of them campaigning about kind of freedom of views and kind of non-discrimination against people, whether or not that they have a religion. So that's kind of how I got to humanism. And so in terms of slides, they're just, these are what I've just pulled off of the Understanding Humanism website, and there's more than I need to go through, but I thought that maybe some questions would come up. But these are basically the 5 key features that we talk about. So I'm a registered school speaker for Humanists UK, so I do go into primary schools, secondary schools, and talk about humanism. So, and often we use the symbols, and I felt that it's quite a nice way in terms of being able to kind of remember things, I find. So the first one being around human nature and potential. So it's that's kind of I guess, a non-religious understanding of where we came from in terms of kind of evolution, and also those kind of capacities that we have, that we can use for the best. So number 2 being about understanding the world and the sense that there only is a natural world, and the way that we understand that is kind of through observation, and using the scientific method. Then in terms of number 3, so that's about one life. So I think one of the humanist slogans is one life, live it well. And I think having one life I suppose didn't come to me immediately on not believing in God, and so it's having, you know, everything you want to do in your life, you this is the one time that you're going to do it. There's no afterlife, so it's about making the most of this one. And when it talks about freedom to find happiness, I think that it's kind of about owning the choices and being able to make those choices for ourselves. And in terms of kind of conceptions of happiness, I think often it's more about kind of the ideas of like well-being and flourishing rather than just like purely sensory pleasure. But there's no, I guess, shame that would be kind of attached to enjoying other things. So it's really about individuals working out what it is for them. Then number 4, so that's more about kind of morality. So seeing that we have evolved and we have the capacity for reason, for empathy, and these are the ways of kind of working out what we should do and what we can do. So thinking about the impact of our actions, not just on other people, but kind of animals and the world. And then finally, human responsibility. So kind of, I guess, again, in terms of thinking about people that it's only humans who have that capability to make the world a better place, and that it's our responsibility basically to reduce suffering, I think, generally. So those are the kind of 5 key things that I think comprise humanism. In terms of kind of, it goes to the next slide. So, oh yeah, so sorry. So this is just a screenshot from the Understanding Humanism website. So, and you'll see those kind of, those 5 key themes come up in loads of couple boxes alongside. So there are resources basically grouped under each of those themes, but there are other useful groupings of resources for teachers. So it's definitely a website that's kind of worth exploring. In terms, so we do have the symbol for humanism, so that's what we call the happy human, and that's a worldwide symbol. And the Humanist UK logo is more that kind of spring man, but it's kind of essentially based around the same side, you know, the same kind of thing. But you know, it's about being human, and what's great about that?
It's an H.
It does look a bit like, yeah, a H for humanism. So on the next slide, so one of the things Emily suggested was talking a little bit about worldview. So and I think some of the words that are associated with humanism but aren't the same as humanism, but sometimes I don't know. So things like atheism, agnosticism, secularism. So this is the the definition or part of the definition, where Commission on RE talks about worldviews. So it's quite broad, I suppose, in terms kind of that, how do you decide what's good? How do you relate to others? How do you express yourself? How do you think about kind of what's your approach to the world like in terms of kind of knowledge as well as action? So that's the slides. And yeah, so in terms of kind of thinking about things like atheism and agnosticism, so I think most humanists would describe themselves as, well, pretty much all being atheists, so not believing in God. But there can be some variation in terms of people also describing themselves as agnostic or agnostic instead of atheist. But I think, so agnostic being saying you can't know whether or not a God exists, but I think that's quite, when I've heard other humanists talk about that can be, and other people who aren't humanists, that's quite a wide spectrum. So I think there's some agnostics who are very much kind of open. It could be one way, it could be.
I know a lot of agnostics.
I don't know. I
don't know agnostics who are quite religious, actually, by that definition.
Yeah, I get. Yes, no, I think that's.
What do you mean by no?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's about that kind of burden of knowledge. So I think it's. But I think kind of the important or an important aspect of both those terms is it doesn't actually tell you what people do think, what their worldview is, because it can be compatible with quite a lot of things. So definitely not all atheists would be humanists. And then in terms of kind of secularism, so this is how I understand it. So it's more about that separation of religion and state in terms of the institutions, but also kind of it's not about pushing an agenda for non-religious people. It's ensuring that kind of that you're not discriminating against people who do have a religion or who don't have a religion, and that people are able to come to those kind of decisions for themselves, and without that kind of external pressure. So secularism, again, that's not going to be a worldview, and that's compatible with non-religious worldviews and religious worldviews being fresh.
Well, I was just going to ask that. Secular. So, this country is objectively not secular.
Yes.
We have bishops in the House of Lords, right? And various other things, and the king is the head of state, and also the Church of England. So church and
supreme governor of the church.
That's because we have a very
sorry.
That's very safe.
Technically, Jesus is still head of the church of England.
We can do that because Anglican is so laid back.
But I kind of wanted to ask a question. Like, France is not great on the old protection of religious freedom.
I'd rather live in England.
Right. So and I've had conversations with my Muslim friends about this, about having bishops in the House of Lords, and they've said we like the fact that religion is a recognised characteristic, that it's part of the state, and that if we start getting discriminated against based on our religious views, then that's contrary to our entire constitution.
I like living in a Christian country.
Right, and that's I kind of, I guess the question is, has secularism actually been successful? I don't know. Not that this is. I understand it's not a humanist question.
Yeah,
it's an interesting.
yeah, but
It's quite a good question.
I just wondered.
I know Monday.
Because I understand that's the behind it.
Well, it's a position that some people argue for. So something like National Secular Society would be trying to advance that. Humanist UK trying to advance it in some way. So like protecting bishops and House of Lords. But yeah, I've read other things that you know, there are reasons to have them there. In terms of some of the benefits they are bringing to the current system. So, but yeah, I think that's a political position. It's successful or it's, you know.
Can you be humanist without being a secularist?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
And
But they do.
I am.
And I guess you could be a Christian secularist as well. You can take the view.
Yeah.
Oh, there are
lots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's the I get to see the way it seems to start, but it's really interact much possible.
Yeah, or exegesis.
But Humanism UK as an organisation is secularist in terms of their political positions.
Yeah.
I support that.
Yeah. So I think the majority of humanists would be. I can't remember what's on the next slide. Oh gosh. Yeah. So yeah. Sorry, it's so late to be trying to think about this. So I guess. So these are slides that I've taken from the website. So if we take those, like each of those statements as being kind of symptomatic of, like, you know, humanism. So you've got humanism as the crossover between those three statements. So if you take any one of those away, potentially you have a worldview that isn't humanist. So you could believe that there were gods, but you could also think that we can lead happy, meaningful lives and we should support the well-being of others. But that's not humanism. And similarly, so I think in terms of people who don't think we should support the well-being of others, that's kind of egotism. I think.
Why
Yeah.
do you support the well-being of others?
Yeah,
Why should we support?
Yes.
Yeah.
Why? I mean, I know from a sort of Jewish point of view, as we're similarly for Christians and Muslims, we have this idea of things being created in the image of God and each being uniquely valuable and having this sort of the sanctity of human life, and so we have that narrative, and we look at another human being, we realize that they're like us, but we have a religious narrative. How do you do that without the religious narrative?
By thinking about other people and thinking how they are like me and how they experience many of the things that, you know, that I'd experienced in terms of
your starting point is the human experience.
Yeah.
That's like okay.
Yeah.
But then
It's a bit like Sacre.
Yes. Yeah.
Don't you have to meet people who just aren't like you and just really, really aren't like you? And why should you care about
It's
that?
the same human experience.
Is it?
I think.
Anyway.
Sorry. Making
Yeah,
trouble.
I'll start reconsidering her. Great, here's the name, but yeah. So I guess that was something else I wanted to draw out. I did have other slides, but it was more if people had kind of specific questions. I'm happy to answer them either now or, you know, take questions on email.
We can send your slides out to people if that.
Yeah.
Yeah, really interesting. As I said, a few more slides.
Thanks for take the time to share and the way you did it. And in terms of questions, Claire, are you okay if we do it by email? I'm just really.
Yeah.
You are all volunteers. You've given up your time freely to be here tonight, and we're pushing on to Warburton.
I know that the group meetings, I'm not at the group meeting, and I'm here, so don't worry about it too much.
Teaching tomorrow in the classroom, tomorrow there. Julie,
Do you want to watch it now or do you want it next time?
I just feel you decide, because you've been pushed and bumped multiple times. It's up to you.
It's about a year now, isn't it?
Do
Do people want to go home or do people want to
Do it.
stop?
I feel like I've shown the slides.
You got it.
Yeah.
Okay, so collective worship. I I currently teach and have mostly taught in Church of England Foundation schools. So we have collective worship rather than assemblies. But I've tried to make this cover both kind of tranches of schools, because the legislation covers everybody. Keep going. Right, so all schools by law have to provide a daily act of collective worship, which must be wholly or mainly of a broadly Christian character. That does not matter whether you are a church-based school or not. It's not distinctive of any particular Christian denomination.
Yes. All schools definitely.
But it's not if you're a non-Christian faith school, then no.
So I think,
Yeah.
I don't think all schools
What
manage
school
it.
is a Christian? What was a Christian faith school?
And I was obviously not collective worship.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Yeah, I was going to say that one's not being followed.
It's not.
So in Church of England schools, this collective worship must be in line with their trustee and follow the Church of England guidance. And the Church of England are really good at giving guidance to your church schools. And that inclusive invitation inspiring May 2021 is the most recent guidance they've given us. And it is really good. Next. So I've gone into that inclusive invitation inspiring. It's basically inclusive. It must include everyone in the room because not everyone in the room has Christian faith. And I like to think of in a church school as it's like an umbrella, and that the school is built on that history of Christianity. And when you come into it, you experience that hospitality of the Christian faith, but you do not take it upon yourself. You are there experiencing that hospitality, living with other people, and then you go out into the world having experienced it, but it is not there to make you become a Christian. And I really like that analogy. It needs to have space for everyone to be able to meet, to explore, to question, to respond. Some people can respond to God, but it's always invitational. So we always have prayer in our collective worship because we're a church school. But I always say, if you're a praying person, join in with me now. If you're not a praying person, could you continue to reflect on X or Y, which is a very human thing. Where we have people who are Muslim, if we say grace or something in school or prayers in school, they may have their own prayers that they say themselves at that same time. They will choose not to pray, but they will be respectful of those who want to. So everybody has to be, like it says, able to be present and engage with integrity. That's where the invitation of it's important. And inspiring, I always say to our advisor, I can be inclusive, I can be invitational. I can't guarantee that I'm always inspiring. So it should be formational, it should be transformational. There are various things you can do in collective worship. It should cover those big questions. Part of our collective worship every term, we have a couple of weeks where we look at big questions. This year it's year 3, 4, and they're all about climate change and cars and how we're going to look after the climate. And I'm trying to get some visitors in to talk about that because that's what the children want to talk about. So over 2 weeks, we will look at their big questions. And oftentimes the children will lead it themselves. We train them up to lead it. There are various reflection type space and things we're to do. So we've got people coming in because the moment different people come in, they provide a different voice, a different look, and it's always lovely and some of them get dress all the children up and that's it. You've lost them for the rest of the day. It's so exciting. Right, moving on. Let's put the same slide in. Oh, we go. So what sort of things do we cover in collective worship? So this is from my current school I am, but I think this is fairly common across schools that I know. News stories, it's really important to be thinking about current affairs. There are various resources that support you in this, and they provide resources that are suitable for church schools, unsuitable for non-church schools. It's good. Protected characteristics, what's important for different people and why you have to include them. British values, stories, Good Samaritan comes up a lot, but there are various other stories. It always has to have a reflection time. They need to have a space of quiet. And when you go back and you talk to the children, because we monitor how they respond to our collective worship, they really value the fact that it's quiet, because there are very few times in school day where it's quiet and you can think, and they really value that. Most schools have school values. For a church school, the vision and the values are core and central to everything. So each day we will put our vision up, we will put our values, and we will highlight what part of it is. Is it our loving community and we're thinking about peace? Is it hope for the future? So at the moment we're on our Lent charity, they're thinking, they're voting for who they want to support, and that will come under hope for the future. and our spirituality tree. It would be, which branch it is, but you will link whatever you're doing to those vision values. We always celebrate festivals and achievement. Friday's the favourite because they get their stickers, and, and issues related to day-to-day life of school. We try and avoid standing at the front and telling them off that whatever they happen to have done on that week. We will approach it on a, let's think about X or think about Y, but it will be issues related to the health of school. And these are additionally in a church school what you would probably spend more on, exploring the school vision. Ours is from Corinthians, it's by Paul, so we will look at Paul and who he is and why he wrote it. And he was writing to a church that were in trouble. And our school went into RI and we were really struggling through COVID. So actually it's a very appropriate vision for our school. You know our school quite well. So exploring the school vision, you will have prayer in there and it's always invitational. Anglican traditions, we light a candle, the children start with a greeting and they close with a greeting. For us, be courageous, be strong, do everything in love is that underpinning value. And they will start, be courageous, be strong, and the rest of the school will respond to everything in love, or whatever. There are others as well. Spiritual development, develop through church schools, developing a shared understanding of spirituality is important. And that will be different whichever school you go into. For us, it's a tree with our roots and our trunk, and we're now on our branches. It's too many words, but we're getting there. And some schools have a Eucharist. The school I'm at now doesn't. I was at the first school I taught in did have Eucharist once a term. And it depends on how churchy the group of people in the church are, in the school are really. So where I am now, having done the school vision development, a large number of our community are actually humanist, agnostic, atheist, asking why do we have to have a church foundation? And we had to be really careful about what we chose because so that it was inclusive. But my previous school was far more church linked and had people choosing it because it was a church school, and that did have Eucharist in it. So it will depend on the kind of nature of your community and your school what you choose to do.
How do you, when you're doing a prayer at your Christmas school, because I've been to sort of like events of sort of graduations and the like, and there'll be a prayer and it'll be a lovely, lovely prayer. And I really want to be a part of this prayer. And then they'll say that those last words. In Jesus. And I'm just like, and I don't belong in this room. And just like your stomach just goes. If you're Jewish, we have an allergy to it. It's deep. It's good to history and stuff. But how do you? Without, I know with my husband's involved a lot of sort of interfaith kind of events, and he I'm trying to remember the wording because he's been dealing with these services where you have an interfaith service, and forget what Christian priest friend of his worked out a wording you could use that was somehow included that, but in a way that it made it clear that he wasn't expecting everyone else to. But I mean, you've got Muslim kids, you got non-religious kids, you've got people who like Jewish kids, whatever. Whatever. How do you deal with that?
So basically, if you would like to join in, we do, and if you wouldn't, this is what we reflect on. Very few of our prayers end with through the name of Jesus Christ, our Lord. They very few. They usually end with amen.
Yeah,
amen means I agree.
So you most just avoid doing that at the end.
If you have a vicar in, then they even
some Christians feel compelled to. That's the thing. They really feel they have to.
I think we're just really clear with the children that you join in with whatever you can do so meaningfully, whatever you can't. So in that position, if it was read up there like that, I would expect you probably stop before I believe the Jesus bit and probably add your amen.
That bit.
Yeah.
So we got in all of ours. If you would like to make this prayer your own.
That's exactly what we say. Yeah.
Yeah.
Choice, it's all invitational and choice.
Yes. And if I'm the only one who speaks because nobody wants to make it their own, then that's how it is. It's not you haven't joined it and you should have done. That doesn't happen. And it very much is reflect on it, make it. It does work actually. It's got a real nice community feel.
Because you want to get people together and you don't want to. Yeah.
Next. There are lots of resources out there to support schools. Some places put their own together. Things like that. Assemblies.org is SP spec one, and it's been around for a long, long time. They've got some great resources. Lots of people use them, church schools or not. PRF Ministries, Bible things, or you can get something like Roots and Shoots, which is a whole structured thing that you can put on top. And me, I'm like, Picture News at the left is really good because that takes events in the news and gives you reflection on it. And it
Actually, the key questions to ask, doesn't it?
Yeah, and it's got a church, and it links to British values. It's got a church school element to it. So if you want to make it church, links to Bible verses and Bible stories, you can. Or you can put all of those resources together, pick and choose, pick a mix, and make your own, and then send your visitors what their theme is for that week. Next one. I won't read it all out, but this is what the guidance says collective worship needs to do. The bottom one's interesting. Enables people to develop skills to engage in the planning, leading, and evaluation of collective worship, ways that lead to improving practice. So we do have children who lead collective worship. So school council might lead one at the moment because they're choosing the charity. We've got a group of about 12 children that have training on doing stilling exercises. What it's called, the Church of England has done it. So it's like a bottle thing.
Space makers.
Yeah, space makers. Where you've got that. Each week, one day is a class collective worship, and I take children out and we talk through the theme and what they've got to do, and you can choose what you might have at the front to help you concentrate. You can ask questions there, and then they will go back and lead that in class. Keep going. We'll keep going. I've done that slide. That's good. And this is what a cycle looks like in our school. It's probably fairly similar to all schools. Monday is the head teacher usually likes Monday because they can set the theme for the week, they can pick up on whatever. And for us, that's the whole school. And the link to our vision will be our loving community. So that way, like this week, we talked about Ramadan because it's coming up and we've got children in the school with you are fasting. So that will come up, and we pick for each main religion at least one of their main holy days when it's coming up will come up on one of our Mondays when it's appropriate in the calendar. Tuesday and Wednesday is kind of me, visitors, and the children, and it's all based about our Christian foundation. It will be loving community, it will be hope for the future, it will be whatever thing we're looking at. Usually Bible story based with reflection. Thursday's singing. There will be something that they have to reflect on the theme, but it'll be very, very short. And then Friday is celebrations, that's all the certificates and things like that. Actually, now other staff are doing Fridays now as well, not just their teacher. So you can see like kind of the pattern in the mix.
So you do assemblies every day?
And ours is almost identical, except for our Wednesday and Thursday is the way around.
Pardon?
Ours is Wednesday and Thursday, the opposite way around, but ours is identical.
You do whole school assemblies every day?
It's your class-based or whole school.
Yes,
right.
Oh, it hasn't. I can see the link on my screen.
It's
The website hasn't opened on.
Well, if you send it around, people can have a look because
Yeah.
that link links us to the collective worship part of our website, so you can kind of just scroll down and have a little look and see what it looks like in practice. We do things like we do also have additional things like we have a prayer space in the school once a year, which is a week where it's set up and children go out there and have chances to reflect or pray, and all of the things in there are. So, for example, we did have lots of the leaders of different countries and in the area, and the different faith groups in our country was one of the things we had up. And the invitation to these people, and if you want to pray for the work they do, they might be, you might like to, or can you have a think about how you've seen them and what you would like to see them do as a leader. When the king was crowned, we had all sorts of different things, and they had one of them was like the crown action. What would you want if you were king? What do you think is really important? The sceptre, and you could how long it was, and we posted images on it. So it's all very creative, very interactive. Again, and we have people from the community coming in and supporting that. And again, they really like that. Again, that's from Reflect, and that's really high up the list of things they like because it's quiet. Bizarrely, they like the quiet. They like being able to reflect. And I think that's it. That's probably it. Yeah, that's just a bit of collective worship for you.
Thanks, folks. I do.
Yeah.
It was worth waiting, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So I want to make sure presentations done out, and if you're happy for me to email you questions.
Yeah.
Loads ready.
Got loads of questions.
I'll email you.
I love it. I love it. One of my favourite things.
Luciani, I don't know, notes, use item 11 I missed. Feedback from Berkshire Sacre hockey meetings. Definitely some
Oh,
news,
I
but-
think we've actually
We've
kind
covered
of,
it. I think we've covered it.
as we've talked about the teacher as we go through.
Really quickly, just any other businesses, a few little things I will go through really quickly. So the Sacre conference is, I think, 12th of May. Is that
I think it's the
next
19th.
19th? Okay, that's a few days out. If any of you would like to go, there are spaces. There is a space for Saturday number to attend.
It's in East London this year. so
Stratford Town Hall.
Stratford, yeah.
Stratford Town Hall.
Please do reach out to Luciani and Emily. Emily, you wanted to do on debate. Further.
It's a very quick thing. So people at a previous meeting asked me to find out what was happening with the Wokingham Interfaith Forum. And the answer is that it's been subsumed into a broader equalities forum, and there are opportunities for religious faiths to be represented on various sort of subgroups of that. As well as non-religious review. So there is a colleague of mine that coordinates that equalities group and the subgroups within it. So if anyone's interested in being part of a WBC forum that's related to faith and worldviews, then let me know and I can put you in touch with my colleague. But there is no longer an interfaith forum as such.
Luciana, I don't know if you do. Yeah, you can need to any updates on car park. Emily put down that we're gonna just.
I think just sort of that Luciani very kindly looked into the request to cover people's parking costs, and we have found it's quite expensive.
It is.
And Sacre has to cover the costs,
Yeah.
but we can do it, and I feel it's the right thing for us to do it.
How expensive is it?
They charge for a whole day rate.
Oh, if I'd have held on and come in at 6, it was free.
How much would it
I
cost?
came in at 10 too.
It was £1.
Sacre not just reimburse us separate.
I think it'd be better if
Yeah,
it was reversed to
so-
dimension.
It is quite laborious, but yes. So you have to send me a picture of the receipt and I'll have to get your bank account details and there'll be an admin.
Should we,
First,
honestly, I'd rather pay.
I just,
Yeah.
I just need it. I found it feasible. I parked in 1 hour parking before 6 p.m. So. park there.
So tonight's been covered.
Yes, yeah. Because it is free from there from 6, isn't it? Oh, it's £1 from 6. So I gave it at 10 to 6.
So that's for money. Mine for, yeah, but market 5:45.
The next meeting.
Yes.
This is what like
the final
the
thing.
accounts.
Final thing.
I've got one little good news.
Oh, go on.
I got one little good news. My class won the British Darts last year. So I never got to talk about it another time. My class actually won. So it is good news. Yeah.
I don't know.
Sorry, everyone. Thank you. So I do want to bring the meeting to close. Conversations two. Very quickly. The next meeting is the 9th of June. And the proposed date for the autumn term is the 11th of November 25. So please do check calendars to ensure that doesn't come delegate. My apologies. The 9th of June is, as I made very clear, sort of last week was my last meeting. I think the only two people who've been on Saturday are Leah, Shearer, and Beth. I think it's now, I've been here for many years. It's time for me to step back. I think new blood, new people to come in. So if anybody is interested in sort of chair position for next academic year, please do sort of reach out if you have a conversation. Chat with anyone. Thank you for your time this evening, everyone. Really appreciate everyone's contributions. Oh, Emily.
Sorry, just one really quick thing. First of all, I think the date of the autumn meeting is 17th of November. Luciani.
I can have a look.
Yeah, I can confirm with you. But the other very quick thing is that I meant to mention when we were talking about the Constitution. Thank you very much to everyone for completing the survey about your nominating body. What we would like to do just to finalise getting our records straight is to make contact with your nominating body just to confirm with them that they are happy for you to represent them on the Sacre, and then we would do that every 4 years just to check that our records are straight. So if anyone is not happy for us to contact your nominating body, then let us know. Otherwise, we'll do that if that's okay.
Thank you, everyone. Enjoy this afternoon.
What did we do?
Inspection.
We did the